Chapter 420. Fire Release. Great Fireball Jutsu. With the activation of the ninjutsu, a scorching fireball gushed out of Sasuke's bulging mouth and fiercely rushed towards Kimimaro. This is bad. Red Bean, who was acting as the temporary referee, suddenly had a dark expression on her face, and her heart was hanging in her throat. In her opinion, Kimimaro, who was about 10 years old, couldn't resist Sasuke's fire release ninjutsu. Even if she was 10 years old, she wouldn't be able to do so. When the surrounding villagers saw the blazing fireball, they all opened their mouths, revealing a dumbfounded expression. No one expected that Sasuke, who was only 7 years old, could display such a powerful sea-level fire release ninjutsu, which has touched the level of a chunin. After casting the grand fireball technique, Sasuke raised his eyebrows and showed an expression that said, "Everyone, come and praise me." In the Hyuga clan, Patriarch Hyuga Hayashi frowned slightly. Compared to Sasuke, who can use sea-level fire release ninjutsu at such a young age, his daughter, who can't even use basic soft punch, is even more mediocre. On the side, Ningxi activated the Byakugan, and a dignified expression appeared on his young face. Richa said, "This child of the Uchiha family may be a strong opponent in your ninja school." Ningxi nodded seriously. "Well, he is very strong. The use of ninjutsu not only requires sufficient chakra, but also a superb control of chakra, which is extremely difficult for children to do. As a member of the Uzumaki clan, Naruto's chakra is naturally abundant. The reason why he was at the bottom of the ninja school was because he couldn't accurately control the chakra in his body. Not only the Hyuga clan, but also the ninjas of Nara, Akimichi, Yamanaka, Inuzuka, and other famous clans were more or less taken aback when they saw Sasuke's great fireball jutsu. Outside the square, on the edge of a tall building, the 4 members of Hyojin Umbu's 7th squad were lined up, either sitting or standing, watching the competition that was going on in the center of the square. After seeing Sasuke's great fireball jutsu, Kurenai curled her lips. "This kid is not worse than us at that time." Haint also said with emotion, "As expected of the Uchiha clan, that child of the Sound Village is going to suffer." Hyojin smiled. Ordinary children are indeed no match for Sasuke, but unfortunately, Kimimaro is not ordinary. Not to mention, Kimimaro is 3 years older than Sasuke, and he was trained by that perverted Orochimaru for a long time. At this age, Kimimaro should be more than enough to beat Sasuke. Whoosh, accompanied by a whistling sound, the scorching fireball quickly crossed the ground, roasting a string of black marks on the ground, then went straight to the area where Kimimaro was. Everyone's eyes were focused on Kimimaro at this time. Everyone was very curious about how this white-haired kid would deal with the crisis in front of him. Several Mai ninjas on the sidelines were also ready to rescue him. After all, Kimimaro was a Sound Village ninja who came to form an alliance with Mai. If he lost his life in the alliance ceremony, then it would be very embarrassing for Mai. However, in everyone's eyes, Kimimaro didn't try to hide, he was calm and unperturbed. Why isn't he dodging? For a moment, such a question appeared in everyone's mind. Whoosh, just as Sasuke's fireball was about to hit Kimimaro, Kimimaro suddenly disappeared. Body flicker technique? Unlike most of the villagers who were at a loss, most of the ninjas recognized the ninjutsu used by Kimimaro, but only a few of them were able to instantly lock the position where Kimimaro used the body flicker technique. Seeing everyone looking at him, the corner of Sasuke's mouth slightly raised, revealing an expression of victory. Because his vision was blocked by the flames of the great fireball technique, he didn't see the body flicker technique that Kimimaro used at the last moment, so he thought that Kimimaro was hit by his own fireball. Just as Sasuke was waiting for everyone to cheer and congratulate him, a cold voice suddenly came from behind him. "What are you doing? Who is it?" The shocked Sasuke was about to turn around, but a burning sensation came from his back. Before he could taste it, his whole body was sent flying. At this time, Kimimaro slowly retracted his foot and said indifferently, "Hey, are you really Uchiha?" Sasuke quickly got up from the ground. "What happened? You were clearly—" Whoosh! Before Sasuke could finish his words, Kimimaro used the body flicker technique again and appeared in front of Sasuke, punching Sasuke's face. Suddenly, Sasuke spun like a spinning top and was sent flying. As Sasuke was knocked to the ground again, exclamations spread around the square like waves. All the ninjas present, whether they were from the noble families of Mai, or the ninjas from the Sand Crypsis village, Kusanagi village, and Takanaji village, all locked their eyes on the 10-year-old Kimimaro. Kimimaro used the body flicker technique twice in a row, which not only stunned the confident Sasuke, but also shocked the temporary referee Red Bean. She was surprised to find that even as a Tokubetsu Jonin, she couldn't use the body flicker technique that fast and agile. On the side of the square, Fuyue crossed his arms in front of his chest, and his face was as black as the bottom of a pot. At this time, he could see that the 10-year-old white-haired kid from the Sound Ninja village was very strong. He was not inferior to a Chunin or even a Tokubetsu Jonin. Although he knew that it was normal for Sasuke to lose to this alien, when he thought about the Uchiha clan being humiliated in public, he couldn't help but feel disappointed in Sasuke. The 3 generations on the roof of the Naruto building also noticed the competition in the square. Seeing that Sasuke couldn't fight back, he calmly asked the Shadow Guard captain next to him, "Who is that kid?" The Shadow Guard captain looked at the information and said, "He is a ninja from the Sound Ninja village. His name is Kimimaro. According to the information, he seems to have the blood of the Kagaya clan in the Mist village." The 3 generations silently said, "Kimimaro." Sasuke climbed up from the ground again, and his handsome face was twisted. He angrily shouted, "You damn bastard, I'm going to kill you!" After saying that, Sasuke angrily rushed over and punched Kimimaro. Kimimaro leaned to the side and leisurely dodged Sasuke's fist. Then he raised his leg and hit Sasuke's abdomen with his knee. Ugh! With his abdomen injured, Sasuke vomited and knelt on the ground. At this time, on the roof of a tall building in the distance, a yellow-haired kid with 3 pairs of beards jumped into the sky and shouted, "Sasuke, quickly fight back!" Chapter 421. Listening to Naruto's shout, Sasuke, who was kneeling on the ground, clenched his fists and thought, "Damn, do you think I don't want to fight back? It's just that this guy's movements are too fast." This was the first time he felt despair from someone his age. His opponent's speed was too fast, so fast that he couldn't resist at all. He thought that his taijutsu wasn't bad. When he fought with his brother, he could fight back and forth. But facing Kimimaro's fast taijutsu, he couldn't use it at all. Kimimaro silently looked at Sasuke for a while before walking towards the Sound Ninjas. He was indeed jealous of the Uchiha clan, but he didn't want to humiliate Sasuke, who was younger than him. When he found out that Sasuke was weaker than he expected, he wasn't even as strong as Haku, the weakest of the 4 Sound Ninjas. He had no interest in tangling with Sasuke anymore. "Stop right there." Sasuke gritted his teeth and stood up. Compared to the humiliation and provocation, he couldn't stand Kimimaro's indifferent attitude towards him. He couldn't stand Kimimaro's calm expression either. Kimimaro looked back at Sasuke and said, "You've already lost." "No." Sasuke waved his hand and shouted, "I haven't lost yet." Kimimaro turned around with an annoyed expression on his face. Looking at the impatient Kimimaro, and listening to the whispers of the villagers, Sasuke felt a burning sensation on his face. This burning sensation wasn't only because of the swelling caused by Kimimaro's attack, but also because of the humiliation he had never felt before. Sasuke couldn't help but tremble in shame and anger at the thought of his shameful performance being witnessed by all the villagers, even by the ninjas from other villages such as Sunagakure, Kusanagi, and Takagunin. In fact, ordinary Mai villagers might laugh at Sasuke, but the ninjas wouldn't, whether they were from Mai or other villages. On the contrary, the more powerful a ninja was, the less they would laugh at Sasuke. This was because Kimamaro's strength was in everyone's eyes. Many of the older ninjas thought that if they were in Sasuke's position, they might not be Kimamaro's opponent. The young Sasuke naturally couldn't understand this. At this time, he was shrouded in endless shame and anger. His eyes were only focused on the white-haired and indifferent Kimamaro. In this intense shame and anger, Sasuke entered an inexplicable state. Suddenly, he felt that his vision became a lot clearer, as if a window had opened in his heart. At the same time, he felt that the chakra in his body had increased a lot. Kimamaro's eyes narrowed as he looked at Sasuke's scarlet eyes. The people on the sidelines were also surprised. Even Fuyue, who had a serious face, couldn't help but murmur, Sharingan. In the Uchiha clan, those who could awaken their Sharingan at the age of 10, as long as they didn't die prematurely, they would eventually become famous in the shinobi world. But Sasuke actually awakened his Sharingan at the age of 7, which was really beyond Fuyue's expectation. One must know that his eldest son, Itachi, only awakened his Sharingan at the age of 7.5. In the group of shinobi, a greedy light flashed in Orochimaru's eyes. He stared at Sasuke like a beast staring at its prey and grinned, another Uchiha genius. At this moment, after Uchiha Jishue, Itachi Uchiha, and Uchiha Yen, the name Uchiha Sasuke was added to Orochimaru's hunting list. On the Hyuga clan's side, looking at the eye-catching single Magatama Sharingan in Sasuke's eye sockets, and then thinking of his daughter Hinata with mediocre aptitude, Hyuga Hayashi felt a burst of bitterness. Although the Hyuga clan and the Uchiha clan are known as the two great pupil bloodline clans in the village, but in private, Hayashi is very clear that the Hyuga clan is obviously inferior to the Uchiha clan in terms of reputation and status. In addition to the fact that the Hyuga clan is used to hiding their strength and biding their time, the more important reason is that the Hyuga clan doesn't have an endless number of geniuses like the Uchiha clan, and there is no Uchiha Jishue who can deter the shinobi world. Thinking of this, Hayashi looked at Ningxi on the side, looking at Ningxi's immature and serious face, and thought to himself, the future of the Hyuga clan may depend on Ningxi. On the edge of the building in the distance, Hyojin was also taken aback, and thought to himself, no way, the Sharingan has been opened just like this? TSK, the reincarnation of Indra is really amazing. At this time, Sasuke also noticed the changes in his eyes, and said in surprise, my Sharingan has been opened. I also have the Sharingan. Kimamaro opened his mouth and asked, is this the Sharingan? With the opening of the Sharingan, Sasuke regained his confidence, and said with high fighting spirit, yes, this is the pupil bloodline inheritance of our Uchiha clan. Under my Sharingan, none of your movements can escape my insight. I will return the humiliation you gave me just now tenfold. Kimamaro waved at Sasuke and said lightly, then come. I can see everything about you. Although he wasn't used to using the Sharingan, Sasuke was full of confidence, and he rushed towards Kimamaro with the determination to avenge his humiliation, and the Sharingan in his eye sockets began to slowly spin. In his vision, the flow of chakra on Kimamaro's body was faintly visible, and although it wasn't very clear, it didn't prevent him from making a judgment. At this time, he remembered what Itachi said to him during practice. The flow of the enemy's chakra is the prelude to the enemy's action. Suddenly, he found that Kimamaro's chakra was gathering towards his legs, but before he could think of a countermeasure, Kimamaro's figure disappeared from his vision. Sasuke was shocked. How is this possible? Bang! With a muffled sound, Sasuke was swept to the ground by Kimamaro's leg, and even one of his teeth was knocked out. Sasuke climbed up unwillingly and shouted, how could this be? How could you escape my Sharingan's detection? Bang! Kimamaro's reply to Sasuke was a straight punch from Kimamaro. This punch directly hit Sasuke's chest, and although he only used 40 to 50% of his strength, it still sent Sasuke flying. The pain from his chest made Sasuke curl up into a ball like a shrimp. In a brief moment of absent-mindedness, he couldn't help but salivate and drip on the ground. Looking at Sasuke, who was in pain on the ground, Kimimaro was a little surprised, and he asked, "Is the Sharingan only at this level?" Chapter 422. Sasuke, who was curled up on the ground, was in extreme pain. He struggled to stand up again, but his young body couldn't get up as he wished. At this time, Kimimaro's whisper reached his ears, making him feel like he was struck by lightning. "It's not like this, the Sharingan shouldn't be like this." With strong unwillingness and anger, Sasuke burst out with a powerful chakra. He suppressed the discomfort of his body and climbed up from the ground again. Kimimaro's tone was cold. "Do you think I don't dare to kill you?" Sasuke shouted. "Even if I die, I will never allow you to trample on the glory of Uchiha." After shouting, Sasuke gathered his chakra and raised his hand to make hand seals again. Perhaps it is because of the activation of the Sharingan, this time the speed of his hand seals is obviously much faster than before, and in just a few breaths, he has completed all the hand seals. Fire release. Grand Fireball Jutsu. In an instant, a blazing fireball that was obviously bigger and faster than before came out of Sasuke's mouth. The huge heat wave generated by the fire release ninjutsu forced the villagers in the outer circle to cover their faces and move away again, causing a lot of commotion in the square. As the temporary referee, Red Bean couldn't help but complain, "If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have agreed to let them compete. These two kids are simply monsters." In the Hyuga clan, looking at the grand fireball jutsu that illuminated the square, Richa couldn't help but sigh, "What a terrifying potential." Ningxi also slightly opened his mouth. If Sasuke's performance before, he didn't care about it, then Sasuke's performance at this time was beyond his expectations. He even suspected that he might not be Sasuke's opponent right now. On the other side of the building, Hyojin activated Byakugan. Although he knew that the Great Fireball technique couldn't do anything to Kimimaro, Sasuke's Great Fireball technique wasn't inferior to many Chunins. Whether it was the speed of the hand seals or the application of chakra, they were all remarkable, almost reaching the limits of a 7-year-old child. Hyojin himself would never have been able to do this when he was 7 years old. Even Red, who was very arrogant on the side, couldn't help but sigh when she saw Sasuke's move. "Uchiha's kid is really good. He gives me the same feeling as when I saw Kakashi in the past." In the eyes of all the students of the same year, Kakashi in the ninja school was so impressive. In front of the main entrance of the Naruto building, Tsunade also looked at the competition on the square. Unlike the praises of the others, she told the disciples around her while watching the competition, "Remember, in the face of absolute speed and strength, 1 or 2 ninjutsu won't be able to change the outcome of the battle, so don't slack off in your daily physical training." Yes. Mute, Kuroto, Uchiha, and Izumi nodded again and again. Among them, Uchiha and Izumi looked worried. She knew that Sensei's words wouldn't come out of nowhere, so she was secretly worried about Sasuke. Soon, Tsunade's words were confirmed. Kimimaro once again easily avoided the fierce Great Fireball technique, then his figure flashed and slid under Sasuke's body, and from the bottom up, he kicked fiercely. This kick hit Sasuke's chin, and his whole body was kicked into the air, then he fell heavily on the ground. After this, Sasuke was thrown into a daze, and his whole body was in a daze. In the end, he glanced at Sasuke, who was dizzy and couldn't get up no matter how hard he tried. Kimimaro slowly returned to the group of ninjas, and returned to Orochimaru's side. His expression didn't change much from beginning to end, and he didn't feel any excitement from defeating the genius Uchiha, who opened his eyes at the age of 7. It was as if he had just done something insignificant. Orochimaru smiled and asked, "How do you feel?" Kimimaro bowed respectfully to Orochimaru, unexpectedly weak. "Is that so?" The smile on Orochimaru's face deepened, and he asked casually, "Do you really think he's weak?" Kimimaro firmly believed that every word Orochimaru said had a deep meaning, so he carefully recalled the fight just now, trying to find Sasuke's strong points. However, after thinking for a long time, he couldn't find any good points, so he carefully said, "Sir, his taijutsu and ninjutsu are all a mess. He's really weak." Orochimaru smiled and didn't say anything. Kimimaro was one of his most satisfying creations, and he was also one of his spare bodies. So, he knew Kimimaro's talent better than anyone else. Kimimaro was a pure genius. Also, Kimimaro had the bone vein, so his bloodline wasn't inferior to the Uchiha clan, so Kimimaro was perfect in every aspect. However, the Uchiha clan's potential couldn't be underestimated. After all, Kimimaro was older than Sasuke by 3 years. If both of them grew up, it would be hard to predict who would win. At this time, Sasuke climbed up again, and he roared, wanting to rush at Kimimaro again. "Enough!" On the sidelines, Fugaku suddenly called out to Sasuke. Sasuke looked back at Fuyue and shouted, "Father, I can win!" Fuyue's tone softened, and he said gently, "Come back, a momentary victory or defeat doesn't mean anything." With Fuyue's eyesight, it wasn't difficult to see that Kimimaro's strength had already surpassed the level of a Chunin. When he fought with Sasuke, he didn't use his full strength. So, Fuyue didn't want the talented Sasuke to suffer another setback. Listening to his father's words, Sasuke's tears suddenly filled his eyes. Fuyue's face immediately sank. Sasuke wiped his tears and turned to Kimimaro, who was in the Sound Ninja group, and shouted, "Today I lost. I will remember this debt, and I will get it back with my own hands in the future." Kimimaro didn't even look at Sasuke, as if he didn't hear Sasuke's declaration. Sasuke immediately became anxious and shouted, 3 years! I will find you after 3 years and win back the honor that belongs to me." Kimimaro still didn't respond, and his expression was indifferent. Returning to the Uchiha clan, Sasuke's face was full of grievances. The pain that he had suppressed because of his emotions had exploded, and he couldn't stand up straight. Fuyue said, "Stand up straight." Sasuke immediately straightened his back. Fugaku then said, "Although you lost, your performance today was very good. You are indeed my son." Listening to his father's praise, Sasuke felt the pain in his body disappear. Then, he asked, "Father, why can't my great fireball technique hit anyone?" Fuyue's face froze. Chapter 423. It was very difficult for Fuyue to explain to his 7-year-old son that not all ninjutsu were aimed at killing the enemy. For example, the Great Fire Release ninjutsu, which has a large area of effect. Most people hope that the flames of the Great Fireball technique can block the enemy's vision, and the high temperature can interfere with the enemy's perception, in order to cover their next move. But for the Uchiha clan who had the Sharingan, the Great Fireball Jutsu was more of a test. Or to test the enemy's strength, or to force the enemy to move, or to take the opportunity to retreat. In short, very few people hoped that the Great Fireball Jutsu would be able to kill the enemy. Thinking of this, Fuyue found that even if he used the Great Fireball Jutsu, he rarely hit the enemy. He felt a little embarrassed, so he said to Sasuke, "You will know when you grow up." Sasuke nodded. After all, the contest between the two children was just a small interlude before today's alliance ceremony. The square quickly returned to its noisy state. Everyone was talking and laughing again. However, people who paid attention to the ceremony would find that whether it was the host, Mai, or the ninjas from the Sand Crypsis, Kusanagi, and Taki villages, they would look at Kimimaro from time to time. Before this, including Mai, everyone thought that there wouldn't be any experts in the newly established Sound Village. They thought that coming to my village to participate in the alliance ceremony was just to make up the numbers. However, Kimimaro's performance surprised everyone. The Sound Village, which had just been established not long ago, had also become mysterious. Everyone looked at the Sound Ninjas with a casual gaze, but now it was filled with curiosity. On the edge of the building in the distance, Hyojin's eyes flashed. After watching the competition, he realized that he seemed to have underestimated Kimamaro's talent. So he made up his mind. Even if it was just a test, he would collect some of Kimamaro's blood and cells. It would be a pity to miss such a good seedling. Soon, the alliance ceremony officially began. On the long table in front of the Naruto building, there is an exquisitely crafted alliance contract. 3 generations of Naruto are standing in front of the contract, waiting for the representatives of each village. At this time, the representatives of each village walked to the front of the Naruto building. The representative of the Sand Crypsis village was the Sand Crypsisa's consulting elder, Chiyo. Because she was poisoned by the scorpion, Chiyo had been receiving treatment from Tsunade and Mai, so the Sand Crypsis conveniently let her be the representative of the alliance. The representative of the Grass Village was the elite Jonin Tetsuya, who followed closely behind Chiyo of the Sand Crypsis. The representative of the Takanobi Village was a strong ninja with bandages all over his body. His name is Saimuji. It is said that he has a high status in the Takanobi Village. He is the ninja responsible for guarding the holy tree. The representative of the Sound Village was Orochimaru, who went by the pseudonym Sound. He walked directly in front of the 3 generations and didn't seem to be worried about being recognized by his teacher. After the 3 generations read the contents of the contract to everyone in the square through the loudspeaker equipment, they were the first to press their fingerprint on the contract. Then, Chiyo, Tetsuya, Saimuji, and Orochimaru respectively pressed their fingerprints on the contract on behalf of their respective villages. At this time, fireworks sounded. As the representatives of all parties pressed their fingerprints on the alliance contract, the alliance led by Mai was officially established. Various celebrations also began in the square. For a time, the entire square became a sea of joy, filled with the laughter of adults and the playful sound of children. Sasuke, who had just suffered a setback, couldn't stand this happy atmosphere and left the square alone. Suddenly, the yellow-haired Naruto squeezed out of the crowd and approached Sasuke, saying, "Sasuke, why didn't you fight back just now? You're so lame." Sasuke, whose scar was exposed, suddenly became furious. "Idiot, what do you know? That guy is a real expert." Naruto is a little curious. Is that white-haired guy really so powerful? Since the night they were kidnapped by Orochimaru and Obsidian and met outside the village, these 2 little guys became friends. Of course, most of the time, it's Naruto who takes the initiative to pester Sasuke. After all, Sasuke, who has the whole family to look after him, doesn't lack friends, but Naruto, who is alone, is different. As soon as he thought of Kimamaro, Sasuke's face was still full of hatred. He said, "Our Uchiha clan's #1 expert Uchiha, you should have heard of him, right?" Naruto shook his head with a blank face. He was less than 7 years old. His mind was full of ramen and games. He didn't care about these names at all. Even if he occasionally heard others mention it, he would forget it in a blink of an eye. "Ignorant idiot!" Sasuke cursed. His face immediately became gloomy. "Even if I fight with Brother Jishue, who has the name Blink, I won't be defenseless. But that guy's speed is so fast that he can escape my Sharingan's detection. It's simply unheard of. Don't you think he's powerful?" Naruto asked, "Did you awaken your Sharingan? What does the Sharingan look like? Let me take a look." Sasuke immediately activated his Sharingan and said arrogantly, "This is the Sharingan of our Uchiha clan." Staring at Sasuke's scarlet eyes, Naruto said, "It's really special. Today, I awaken my Sharingan. My strength is stronger than usual, but even so, I still can't catch that guy's figure. Don't you think he's powerful?" Naruto nodded again and again. It sounds like he's really powerful." Sasuke said very seriously, He is the enemy of our Uchiha clan. Naruto put his arm on Sasuke's shoulder and said, Okay, let's go eat ramen. You've been beaten up hard, you should be hungry. Sasuke immediately shook off Naruto's arm and said coldly, Don't flirt with me, I'm an emotionless avenger now. Naruto asked, You're not going to eat ramen? Don't mention ramen to me. Glaring at Naruto, Sasuke said, The heavy responsibility of defeating that guy must be borne by me. This is the family's mission. If you're not going, I'm going. Holding the back of his head with both hands, Naruto swaggered toward the ramen restaurant and said, Maybe your brother Jishue is just letting you win. I don't believe that the number one expert of the Uchiha clan can't beat that white-haired guy, Sasuke shouted. How is that possible? We've been practicing very, very seriously. Chapter 424. In the evening, the ceremony ended without a hitch, and the crowd on the street gradually thinned out. During the entire alliance ceremony, other than the small interlude between Kimimaro and Sasuke, nothing else happened. It went so smoothly that even Hyojin was a little surprised. Kuroto thought that Orochimaru would take the opportunity to do something. One must know that when the alliance contract was officially signed, there was a sea of people in the square. If Orochimaru made some trouble at that time, even if he detonated a few detonation talismans, the number of casualties could easily reach 4 digits. But Kuroto didn't expect that Orochimaru would take the opportunity to do something. After a day of duty, Hyojin returned home. Knock knock. Not long after, there was a knock on the door of the outer courtyard. Hyojin opened the door and saw Ningxi standing outside with a box of bento. Bowing to Hyojin, Ningxi held up the bento box in his hands and said, Teacher, you haven't eaten yet, right? I'm here to bring you a bento. Although they hadn't officially acknowledged each other as their teacher, Richa had already talked to Hyojin, so Ningxi had already changed the way he addressed Hyojin as teacher. Taking the bento box, Hyojin thought to himself, Why does it sound so weird? After leading Ningxi into the house, Hyojin casually opened the bento box. Suddenly, the aroma of food filled the air, and he couldn't help but feel hungry. Niji, on the other hand, was kneeling in front of Suijin with a serious expression on his young face. Hyojin ate while asking, What's wrong? Did you not have fun today? Ningxi didn't seem to expect Hyojin to ask this. He was stunned for a moment and then said, I had a lot of fun. Hyojin smiled and said, Don't always stay at home. You have to interact with people your age. Naruto and Sasuke were the saviors of the world appointed by the six-path deity. If Ningxi established a friendship with them from a young age, it would be infinitely beneficial to Ningxi's future. Ningxi nodded and then asked, Teacher, did you know about the competition in the square today? Hyojin glanced at Ningxi and said, So that's why you came. Ningxi bit his lips and said, Teacher, the competition in the square today touched me a lot. Whether it was the ninja of sound or the Uchiha clan, they both showed talent beyond my imagination. Hyojin waved his hand and interrupted Ningxi. When it comes to talent, you're not bad either, but their situation is a bit special. Ningxi eagerly asked, Teacher, do you think I'm not as good as them? Hyojin didn't beat around the bush and said bluntly, That ninja of sound is much stronger than you. It will be difficult for you to catch up with him in 3 to 5 years. After Uchiha and Sasuke open their eyes today, their strength will also increase by leaps and bounds. It will be very difficult for you to fight against him before you completely master the soft fist, Bagua empty palm. Kimimaro is a simple-minded person. All he wants is to be useful to Orochimaru. Because of this purity, he doesn't have any distractions. Therefore, he won't be lazy and playful like ordinary children. Orochimaru has never regarded him as a child and has given him the harshest ninja education. Moreover, Kimimaro's bloodline and talent are the best in the ninja world. Therefore, among his peers, he should be one of the strongest. The only one who can compete with him is probably Otsutsuki Samurai on the moon. Ningxi lowered his head and whispered, I understand. Hyojin comforted him, don't be discouraged. It's not impossible for you to catch up with them. Keep working hard. Ningxi said, I know. I just don't want to see my father's disappointed look. Hyojin shook his head silently. He could imagine the disappointment of Hayashi and Richa after watching the match between Kimimaro and Sasuke. Hinata hasn't shown any talent in soft fist. Although Ningxi has the name of a genius in the clan, it's only compared to the children of the clan. If compared to Kimimaro, he is far inferior. Even compared to Sasuke, he is slightly inferior. After hesitating for a long time, Ningxi gathered his courage and asked, Sensei, is our Hyuga clan really not as good as the Uchiha clan? Is the Byakugan really not as good as the Sharingan? Hyojin said casually, this is not something you need to consider right now. Ningxi pouted, then, when can I consider this problem? Defeat me. Hyojin smiled and said, when you defeat me and become the strongest person of the Hyuga clan, then you can consider whether the Hyuga clan or the Uchiha clan is stronger. You haven't even touched the peak of the Hyuga clan yet. What basis do you have to judge which clan is stronger? Ningxi was keenly aware of the hidden elements in Hyojin's words and was surprised. Sensei, are you the strongest person of the Hyuga clan? Although he always knew that Hyojin was strong, Ningxi, like other Hyuga clansmen, still subconsciously felt that the strongest person of the Hyuga clan should be Hyuga Hayashi, so after listening to Hyojin's words, he was very surprised. Hyojin didn't deny it and nodded while eating his lunch. He didn't dare to say that he is the strongest in the shinobi world, because the last time he attacked Nagato, Nagato was restrained by others, and it ended in a draw, which shows that his current strength is slightly inferior to Nagato. But there is no doubt that Hyuga clan is the strongest. After all, those guys on the moon all have the surname Otsutsuki, and it has nothing to do with Hyuga clan. Ningxi quickly sat up straight and asked with a look of expectation, Sensei, can I train with you now? Hyojin shook his head and said, don't worry, at your age, it is the time to lay the foundation. In this respect, I may not be as good as your father, so wait until you graduate from the ninja school, and then follow me to train. Oh. Ningxi lowered his head with some disappointment. Kuroto said with a straight face, not just anyone can become my disciple. If you can't get the first place in the ninja school, then even if you graduate, I won't recognize you as my disciple. Kuroto said with a straight face. Ningxi bowed to Hyojin and said, please rest assured, I will not let you down. Swish, at this moment, a figure fell directly in Hyojin's yard, then rushed into the house and shouted, Kuroto, something big happened, Kakashi was attacked. Looking at Guy who rushed into the house with an anxious face, Hyojin frowned and said, tell me slowly, what happened? Ningxi stood up obediently and moved aside. Guy sat down and said with a gloomy face, in the evening, the Umbu found Kakashi in the secret training ground, unconscious. Hyojin asked quickly, is he okay? Guy replied, at present it seems that he is just exhausted, and his life is not in danger, but his Sharingan was taken away. Chapter 425. After Kakashi joined the Special Tactics Squad, his level of confidentiality exceeded that of the ordinary Black Division. Therefore, the training ground where he practiced the Flying Thunder God was also a very secretive training ground. Ordinary people would not be able to get close to it. Because of this, it was not until the evening that the Umbu in charge of patrolling found Kakashi unconscious in the training ground. Then, Kakashi was secretly sent to my hospital by the Umbu and received treatment from Tsunade and woke up. Guy briefly told Kuroto what he knew about the situation. After listening, Hyojin held his chin with one hand. His expression was very serious. In the village, there were not many enemies who could subdue Kakashi before he could even send out a signal flare. Even in the entire shinobi world, there were not many enemies who could subdue Kakashi without taking his life, but just taking away the Sharingan. Hyojin thought about it and could only think of one person, and that was the original owner of Kakashi's Sharingan, Obsidian. How is that possible? Why would Obsidian do something to Kakashi? Aren't they good? Kuroto was really shocked when he heard the news. He was completely caught off guard. In the original time and space, Obsidian had no intention of taking back the left eye he gave to Kakashi until the Fourth Shinobi World War, so Hyojin was completely unprepared in this aspect. At this time, Guy urged, as soon as Kakashi woke up, he asked me to call you and Jishuei, saying that he has questions to ask you too. Let's go find Jishuei now. Hyojin did not think too much and nodded. Ningxi said tactfully, Sensei, I will leave first. After sending Ningxi away, Hyojin and Guy went straight to the Uchiha clan. In Jishuei's home. While Jishuei and Itachi were exchanging their experiences in using the Manjikyu Sharingan, suddenly Sasuke, who had been playing with Naruto all afternoon, rushed in and asked the two of them, Brother, Jishuei-san, when you two usually practice with me, don't you always give in to me? Naruto's careless words during the day had caused Sasuke to take it to heart until now. Itachi noticed the redness and swelling on Sasuke's face and asked curiously, What happened to your face? Sasuke pouted. Today, I competed with someone and lost to them. Jishuei was also curious. Who did he lose to? When Jishuei and Itachi usually practice with Sasuke, they naturally give in to him. Otherwise, with the gap in strength between them, there is no way to talk about practice. But even so, Jishuei is still very clear about Sasuke's strength. Among his peers, he is definitely one of the best. Sasuke said hatefully, He is a ninja from the Sound Shinobi village, called Kimimaro. I awakened my Sharingan today, but I still can't beat him. I have lost face for our Uchiha clan. You awakened your Sharingan? Jishuei and Itachi were both taken aback. Sasuke immediately showed his single Magatama Sharingan and said, I awakened it during the competition, but I don't understand why my Sharingan can't capture his figure. This is completely different from our usual practice. He is much faster than the two of you. Jishuei stared at Sasuke's Sharingan and said with emotion, Sure enough, Sasuke is only 7 years old, right? Itachi nodded. His eyes also focused on Sasuke's Sharingan. Sasuke shouted unhappily, Brother Jishuei, did you hear what I said? At this time, Hyojin and Guy came together and told Jishuei about Kakashi's attack. After listening to this, Jishuei's face also changed. He knows very well that Kakashi's left eye is not an ordinary 3 Magatama Sharingan, but a Manjikyu Sharingan. This secret is only known to the 4 original members of Class 11, and even 3 generations. Kakashi didn't report it to them. Because the Manjikyu Sharingan is too sensitive, once the Uchiha clan learns that Kakashi's left eye is a Manjikyu Sharingan, even if Fuyue is magnanimous, he won't be able to remain indifferent. Realizing the seriousness of the matter, Jishuei didn't dare to delay and said, let's go and see Kakashi. On the side, Itachi asked Hyojin, Senpai, do you need me? After pondering for a while, Hyojin said, You come with me. Soon, the group of 4 left the Uchiha clan's territory. Looking at the few people who left in a hurry, Sasuke pouted, Humph, my brothers really still treat me as a child, but I have obviously grown up, and I have awakened my Sharingan. It didn't take long for them to arrive at the My Hospital. When they were about to reach Kakashi's ward, they happened to meet the 3 generations who had just come out, so they stood by the door and saluted the 3 generations. 3 generations glanced at them, and their eyes stopped on Itachi for a moment, then said, You can go in. 3 generations knew that except for Itachi, all of them were Kakashi's original class, 11 teammates, so it was reasonable for them to come together to visit Kakashi. After saying that, 3 generations left with a heavy heart. After entering the ward, they finally saw Kakashi lying on the hospital bed, looking very dispirited. Everyone is here. Kakashi greeted them weakly. Hyojin didn't wait for the others to speak and asked, "Who is the attacker?" Kakashi glanced at Itachi at the end of the line. "Don't worry, Itachi can be trusted." After a slight pause, Hyojin asked again, "Did you see the enemy who attacked you?" Kakashi lowered his eyes and asked faintly, "Can two different pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan have the same jutsu?" Hyojin understood as soon as he heard this. The attacker was definitely an obsidian. Jishui and the others were a little puzzled. "Why do you ask?" "The one who attacked me is a member of the Akatsuki organization who is proficient in both spacetime ninjutsu and would release Kekkei limit, and his spacetime ninjutsu is actually a Manjikyu Sharingan jutsu called Kemi," Kakashi said slowly. His expression was gloomy and uncertain. "Kemuri?" Jishui and Itachi looked at each other. Both of them were at a loss. Kemuri is a Manjikyu Sharingan jutsu. Both of them have never heard of it. Even in the records of the Uchiha clan regarding jutsu and forbidden jutsu, there is no mention of such a jutsu. Jishui immediately said, "In addition to Shinichi, there is another Manjikyu Sharingan jutsu in the Akatsuki organization." Hyojin has long mentioned to Jishui that the person behind the Nine Tails Rebellion is likely to be an Uchiha clansman who possesses a Manjikyu Sharingan. Moreover, the attack on Shinichi and the murder of his girlfriend Uchiha Kurumi are all controlled by this person. Guy asked curiously, "Kakashi, how do you know so much? Is he like me, shouting the name of the jutsu when he attacks?" Chapter 426. I know the name of his pupil technique, because my Sharingan's pupil technique is also called Kamui. Kakashi lowered his eyes and answered Guy's doubts weakly. Itachi didn't know that Kakashi's left eye is a Manjikyu Sharingan, so he was more surprised than the others and blurted out, "That Sharingan of yours is a Manjikyu Sharingan?" Kakashi nodded silently. Itachi was even more surprised. "I heard that you transplanted a 2 Magatama Sharingan at that time. Did you use your own pupil technique to open the Manjikyu Sharingan?" "Actually, I'm not very clear about this. How did he awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan in his left eye, and when did he awaken it?" Kakashi is actually still confused. Itachi sighed. "A non-Uchiha clansman can actually awaken a 2 Magatama Sharingan to the level of Manjikyu Sharingan with his own strength. This is simply incredible." In Itachi's view, even among the experts of his clan, there are only a few who can achieve this, but a one-eyed outsider did it. This is really hard for him to accept. At this time, Hyojin asked, "During the fight, did you use Kamui?" Kakashi nodded and said, "That's right. At that time, the situation was extremely dangerous. I was already prepared to perish together with him, but I didn't expect that we would actually use Shenwei at the same time and travel to an unfamiliar space." "A strange space?" Jishui was startled for a moment and then said, "Could it be that he used Kamui to travel to different spaces to avoid external attacks?" "My guess is the same as yours. That strange space connected by Kamui should be the key to his ability to turn himself invisible and avoid external attacks." After a pause, Kakashi asked again, "Jishui, there are 2 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan in your Uchiha clan, but they have the same pupil technique." The reason why Kakashi is entangled in this question is because the more he recalls the previous battle, the more he feels that something is wrong. The Akatsuki member wearing the one-eyed vortex mask that attacked him happened to reveal his right eye opposite to his left eye, and it happened to be a Manjikyu Sharingan, and the pupil technique it contains is also Kamui. One coincidence may not explain anything, but 3 consecutive coincidences make him feel uneasy. Jishui and Itachi looked at each other and shook their heads. When Uchiha Madara left, he took away a large number of precious ancient scrolls of the Uchiha clan, so there aren't many records about the Manjikyu Sharingan in the current Uchiha clan, and even fewer records about pupil technique. Therefore, even if both of them are Uchiha Manjikyu Sharingan, they still can't answer Kakashi's question. Hyojin pondered for a while, but didn't say anything. He naturally knows that Itachi and Sasuke in the original world both possess the Manjikyu Sharingan technique, Amaterasu, but it involves the transcription seal. Itachi first sealed his Amaterasu into Sasuke's Sharingan, and then Sasuke awakened his Manjikyu Sharingan. Secondly, Itachi and Sasuke are brothers, so it's not surprising that they both have the same Manjikyu Sharingan technique. Thirdly, Amaterasu is relatively ordinary compared to Kamui, which is an extremely rare spacetime technique. In the original world, when second-generation Naruto saw Sasuke using Earth Life to control Amaterasu, he mentioned that he had seen the same technique before, but its power wasn't as great as Sasuke's. It can be seen that Amaterasu has been obtained by some of the Uchiha Sharingan in the past, but no one has heard of Kamui, which is a spacetime ninjutsu. Even the knowledgeable 3 generations couldn't do anything about it. Seeing Jishui and Itachi shaking their heads, Kakashi said faintly, "Is that so?" There is no doubt that Kakashi already has a guess in his heart, but this guess is too ridiculous in his opinion, so he can't be sure for a while. Jishui asked at this time, "Your Manjikyu Sharingan, besides us, does anyone else know about it?" "None. Kakashi himself doesn't have many friends, and he isn't a talkative person, so everyone who knows that he has a Manjikyu Sharingan in his left eye is in this ward." Jishui glanced at Hyojin and Guy again. Hyojin shook his head and said, "I haven't mentioned it to anyone." Guy replied, "Me neither." Jishui was puzzled. If we didn't leak the news, then how did the Akatsuki organization know about it? The Akatsuki organization must have known that Kakashi-senpai has a Manjikyu Sharingan, that's why they attacked him. Otherwise, if the Akatsuki organization wanted to steal the Sharingan, they shouldn't have targeted Kakashi-senpai, who only has one Sharingan. Kuroto Itachi, who has regained his calm, suddenly asked, "Kakashi-san, I remember that the one who gave you that Sharingan was Obsidian-san, right?" Kakashi said bitterly, "He sacrificed himself, I saw it with my own eyes." Itachi said calmly, "It's the same pupil technique, you have the left eye, and he has the right eye. Even if he isn't Obsidian-san, his right eye is likely to be Obsidian-san's." Jishui suddenly understood. So he wanted to take away Kakashi-san's left eye and make a pair? Guy leaned in front of Kakashi and asked in a low voice, "Kakashi-san, is Obsidian-san still alive?" Kakashi said in a rare stern tone, "I already said that Obsidian-san has sacrificed himself. That bastard from the Akatsuki organization can't be Obsidian-san. He must have accidentally obtained Obsidian-san's left eye and awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. There's nothing strange about this. Didn't I also awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan in my left eye?" Kakashi's inference is still somewhat convincing, because even he, who is not an Uchiha-san, has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. If the other party has the bloodline of Uchiha-san, then the probability of him awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan is even higher. Guy muttered in a low voice, "Then why didn't he kill you?" Guy's words exposed the doubts hidden in the bottom of Kakashi's heart, leaving Kakashi speechless. If the other party isn't Obsidian-san, then why would a vicious member of the Akatsuki-san risk leaking his own information and show mercy to a person who has completely lost the ability to resist? This is the question that Kakashi doesn't want to face the most, because he can't answer it. Hyojin has long been convinced that the one who attacked Kakashi-san is Obsidian-san, but he didn't point it out. Because Obsidian-san has long been a bachelor, he has no relatives in the village, and even the last bond with Kakashi-san has been cut off by him. At this time, even if Hyojin points out his identity, it will only give the other great ninja villages an excuse to attack Mai. The other great ninja villages will think that the one who caused trouble in the Akatsuki organization is either Jiraiya's disciple or Mai's traitorous ninja, and if you think about it carefully, it's all Mai's fault. Chapter 427. As if thinking of some possibility, Kakashi's spirit became more and more absent-minded. Upon seeing this, Hyojin said, "Well, let's go back first and let Kakashi have a good rest." Guy and Jishui also nodded. Anyone can see that Kakashi's spirit is extremely weak at this moment, and now is indeed not the time to investigate the identity of the attacker. Soon, they left the ward. After saying goodbye to Guy at the gate of the hospital, Hyojin secretly pondered about Obsidian's attack on Kakashi. Why would Obsidian do this? Logically speaking, Obsidian wouldn't do anything to Kakashi. No one knows this better than Hyojin, so he still feels that this matter is a bit strange. Is it because of the last battle in the Mist's treasury? After discarding the inherent ideas, Hyojin gradually came up with a train of thought. In the original story, the reason why Obsidian didn't take back his left eye is because after the death of 4 generations Naruto, there is no one in the shinobi world that can really threaten him. Until the start of the 4th Shinobi World War, he was only threatened by Duru once, and that was because Duru inexplicably found the body of Madara Uchiha and used the forbidden technique Edo Tensei to resurrect Uchiha Madara in the state of the undead. Therefore, in the original story, Obsidian didn't take back his left eye, not only because of the bond between him and Kakashi, but also because there is not much need for it. After all, with the power of Kamui, his right eye alone is enough for him to stir up a storm in the shinobi world. But in the original story, the appearance of Amatsukami caught Obsidian by surprise. When Obsidian found out that the leader of Amatsukami has a terrifying strength that is comparable to the Rinnegan, he was very shocked and uneasy, and the calmness he had when he plotted against Akatsuki and 4 generations disappeared. But what really made Obsidian make up his mind was the battle in the Mist's treasury. If he lost to the leader of Amatsukami, he could barely accept it, but in the Mist's treasury, he was 1 step behind and lost to Homasubi of Amatsukami, which was unacceptable to him. Without strength as a guarantee, the Eye of the Moon plan can't be discussed, and compared to the Eye of the Moon plan, the bond between him and Kakashi is nothing. Preconceived notions can kill people. If I knew this would happen, I would have snatched Kakashi's eye first. At most, I would have given him another eye. Thinking of this, Hyojin secretly sighed. Obsidian with only 1 right eye is still within the scope of being able to deal with, because if Obsidian wants to attack, he must get close and materialize, and once he gets close and materialize, his flaws will be exposed. But with both eyes, not to mention the Super Susanoo, that can use Kamui, just the Kamui's long-range attack alone is impossible to guard against. Just think about it, a person hiding in a dark corner a few hundred meters away only needs to stare at you, and you are finished. Who can withstand this? Just as Hyojin was secretly distressed, Itachi on the side asked in a low voice, "Kuroto-san, if the person in the Akatsuki organization really had Brother Obsidian's right eye before, and now he has seized Brother Obsidian's left eye, then can he use Susanoo?" Jishui added with a solemn face, "And he can also use would-release ninjutsu. It is very likely that he has transplanted Hashirama's cell tissue like me." Hyojin rubbed his temples and didn't speak. Thinking about this matter really gives him a headache. Itachi then asked, "Kuroto-san, how should we deal with this?" In terms of the ownership of the Sharingan, Itachi doesn't have the prejudice of superiority like ordinary Uchiha people. In his eyes, as long as one is a Mai ninja, as long as they are in the proper path, anyone can have Sharingan. But the enemy outside the village is different, so he is very eager to recover Obsidian's Manjikyu Sharingan. Jishui also looked at Hyojin at this time. Nowadays, whenever he encounters a problem that he can't solve, he will subconsciously listen to Hyojin's arrangement. After pondering for a moment, Hyojin said, "I need to consult the various ancient books collected by your Uchiha clan." Itachi replied, "The scrolls that record secret techniques and forbidden techniques are all hidden in the secret room of the mansion. There are many sealing techniques placed outside the secret room, even I can't enter. Most of the ancient books that record the history of the clan are stored in the underground secret room of the Naka Shrine. If you want to consult them, I can take you there. Hyojin nodded and said, "Well, let's go tonight." At this moment, a group of people came from the opposite direction. This group of people was none other than Orochimaru and the Sound Ninjas headed by Orochimaru and Mitarai Anko, who was responsible for receiving the Sound Ninjas. After seeing Hyojin, Red Bean greeted him from a distance. "Hyojin, why are you still shopping so late?" Hyojin glanced at Orochimaru and immediately smiled at Red Bean and said, "Aren't you the same?" Red Bean leaned in front of Hyojin and whispered, "Don't mention it, these Sound Ninjas are so troublesome. It's so late, but they still refuse to stay in the inn and insist on going to the Maize night market. I was almost annoyed to death by them today." Although she slightly lowered her voice, Red Bean's words still reached the ears of everyone present. Jishui and Itachi were embarrassed and moved their eyes to the side. Hyojin smiled. He knew that Red Bean did this on purpose. Since this guy came out of the shadow of Orochimaru, he returned to his carefree personality. At this time, Kimimaro recognized Hyojin. His indifferent expression suddenly changed. He immediately looked at Hyojin with hostility. In his simple understanding, Hyojin betrayed Orochimaru and was an enemy that he must eradicate. Haku, who was at the end of the line, also recognized Hyojin. He timidly lowered his head, as if he felt a little guilty for leaving without saying goodbye last time. Orochimaru's eyes passed Hyojin and fell on Jishui and Itachi behind Hyojin. These two Uchiha's bodies were what he had coveted for a long time. Then, Orochimaru gave Yamato a look, asking him to send Red Bean away. Yamato understood and coughed lightly. "Ahem, Red Bean senpai, is there a toilet nearby?" Red Bean frowned and looked at Yamato. "Didn't you just go there before?" Yamato awkwardly paused and said, "I suddenly want to go there again." "Come with me, I'll take you there." After that, Red Bean led Yamato to the nearby toilet while muttering, "He's so young, but his kidney is already broken. How pitiful." Chapter 428. In front of everyone's strange eyes, Yamato blushed and followed behind Red Bean and left. Hyojin naturally saw that Yamato was deliberately sending away Red Bean, so he also told Jishui and Itachi beside him, "You go first, I will be there in a while." Jishui and Itachi nodded and left first. "Huh!" Orochimaru's eyes turned cold at this time, and a trace of doubt flashed on the handsome and evil face under the disguise. With his keen senses, he just captured a small inconspicuous detail. That is, the attitude of Jishui and Itachi towards Hyojin is not that of friends, but the attitude between colleagues, or rather, not just friends but also the attitude between colleagues. There seems to be a trace of respect between superiors and subordinate. But this point is very strange. According to the information sent back by the spy lurking in Mai, Orochimaru can be very sure that in Mai's Umbu, Hyojin and Jishui are not in a superior and subordinate relationship. Itachi is the eldest son of the Uchiha clan, and they are not even considered as colleagues. There is no reason for the two arrogant Uchiha like Jishui and Itachi to be so respectful to Hyojin, the captain of the Umbu squad. It must be known that in the current shinobi world, besides Hyojin and Jishui, Orochimaru is the only person who knows that Itachi has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. Because Itachi awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan when he beat him, so he is very clear that the two Uchiha Sharingan, Jishui and Itachi, are the highest combat power in the Uchiha clan, and this is the main reason why he does not dare to act recklessly in the village. After watching Jishui and Itachi leave, Orochimaru stuck out his tongue and licked his lips, and asked with a look of curiosity, "Kuroto, I am very curious, what method did you use to win over the two of them?" Hyojin wanted to say a few perfunctory words, but his eyes swept over Kimimaro, who was behind Orochimaru, and found that Kimimaro's eyes were full of hostility. He suddenly changed his mind, and said arrogantly, As long as I am stronger than them, they will naturally listen to me. Is that so? Orochimaru didn't believe this kind of nonsense. In his eyes, apart from the leaders of Akatsuki and Amatsukami, there shouldn't be anyone in the shinobi world who can defeat Shursui and Itachi. Hyojin then asked in a frivolous tone, Orochimaru-sama, why are you still playing this childish game? What's the point of bringing a few burdens with you? Without waiting for Orochimaru to reply, Kimimara's body suddenly erupted with a chilling killing intent. It was as if the air around him had become colder by a few degrees. Hyojin secretly smiled. The best way to provoke Kimimaro is to mock Orochimaru. Orochimaru stretched out his hand to stop Kimimaro and then said with a smile, Kuroto, have you forgotten, didn't you grow up with me like this? But I'm different from them. After a pause, Hyojin deliberately showed a trace of impatience and said, I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. After saying that, Hyojin didn't wait for Orochimaru to answer and directly walked past Orochimaru's group. Although he looked indifferent on the surface, he was secretly observing the reactions of Orochimaru and the others. Orochimaru's mood was the same as usual. Obviously, Hyojin's words couldn't affect his mood. Kimimara's anger was even more intense, but because of Orochimaru's obstruction, he had to temporarily suppress his killing intent, but something in his eyes became firmer. Haku kept his head down and didn't seem to care too much about what Orochimaru and Suijin were talking about, and although Yugo was angry, he restrained himself very well. It seems that he has begun to learn to suppress his extreme emotions to avoid falling into a violent state due to excessive emotional fluctuations. After Hyojin walked far away, Kimimaro asked Orochimaru with a puzzled expression, Sir, he dared to be rude to you, why didn't you let me teach him a lesson? Looking at Hyojin's back, Orochimaru thought for a while and then said with a smile, Although I don't know the reason, I can see that he deliberately wanted to provoke me. This kid's actions are getting more and more mysterious. Outside the Naka shrine. Kenji, how's your side? Everything is normal. What about your side? Same. Two Uchiha clansmen who had just finished their patrol gathered in front of the torii. The Uchiha clansman named Kenji leaned against the torii and looked around while saying, Wah, don't you think the clan is making a big fuss out of nothing? The other Uchiha clansman named Wah said in a deep voice, It's normal to be careful. Uchiha Kenji curled his lips and said, Humph, who dares to come to our Uchiha shrine to cause trouble? The patriarch clearly arranged for us to be on night watch, but he still let Uncle Chun-E guard the inner hall. Isn't he looking down on us? As soon as he said this, Uchiha Kenji's expression suddenly froze, as if he was possessed. Realizing that something was wrong, Kazuchiha turned around abruptly, but before he could see the figure of the enemy clearly, his eyes also lost their luster, and just like Kenji, he froze in place. Then, under the torii outside the Naka shrine, three figures appeared. They are Hyojin, Jishui, and Itachi. Looking at Kenji and Wa, who were easily subdued by Itachi's genjutsu, Jishui shook his head. Although Kenji and his two Magatama Sharingan are no match for Itachi's genjutsu with Manjikyu Sharingan, their vigilance is still a bit lacking. At this time, Itachi said, Senpai, the clan has also arranged for a San Magatama to be stationed in the inner hall. Hyojin said lightly, Go and deal with him. Yes. After responding, Itachi vanished on the spot. Hyojin and Jishui didn't stay in front of the torii, and directly walked towards the shrine hall. After a while, Hyojin came to the most secret underground secret room in the Naka shrine of Uchiha without any obstruction, as if he was strolling in his own back garden. The space of this secret room is not too big. In the innermost core area, there is a stone tablet that is half the height of a person, and the tablet is engraved with many twisted characters. Looking at the stone tablet, Hyojin asked, Is this the stone tablet left behind by the legendary sage of 6 paths? This stone tablet that has been tampered with by Black Zetsu can be said to be the beginning of the tragedy of the Uchiha clan. Itachi nodded. Yes, the content on the stone tablet requires Sharingan to recognize. The higher the level of Sharingan, the more content it can recognize. Senpai, do you need me to translate it for you? Hyojin shook his head. No need. With that said, the pure white eyes in Hyojin's eyes suddenly became as bright as stars. Chapter 429. Looking at the shining Tenseigan in Hyojin's eye sockets, Itachi's face froze. Jishui patted Itachi's shoulder. This is Senpai's Tenseigan. It is above the Byakugan and is on par with the legendary Rinnegan of the Sage of Six Paths. Itachi gently nodded, as expected of Kuroto Senpai. In the previous battle of the Hidden Rain Village, Itachi was a step late and did not see the scene of Hyojin fighting Nagato, so his understanding of Hyojin's strength is not deep. But Jishui is different. He has seen Hyojin perform the Tenseigan chakra mode many times, and he is very clear that Hyojin's strength is the best among Mai. Hyojin ignored Jishui and Itachi and concentrated on reading the stone tablet in front of him, and under his Tenseigan, the content of the stone tablet was analyzed little by little. According to the subtle differences in the text traces before and after the stone tablet, Hyojin found that the content of the stone tablet can be roughly divided into 4 parts. These 4 parts also seem to correspond to the Manjikyu Sharingan, Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, and Rinnegan. These are the 4 stages of the Sage's Sharingan. The corresponding part of the Sharingan doesn't have much content, it only mentions the story of Otsutsuki Kagaya, who swallowed the chakra fruit and conquered the chaotic world with his own strength, unified the shinobi world, and finally gave birth to 2 sons. This part of the content can be regarded as a fairy tale, although there is a lot of information contained in it, but for the Uchiha clan who only have the 3 Tomo Sharingan state, it is of little significance. The corresponding part of the Manjikyu Sharingan contains a bit more content. It mentions the story of how Sage of Six Paths subdued the Berserk Ten Tails. It also clearly states the fact that the Uchiha clan is the descendant of Sage of Six Paths, and Sage of Six Paths is worried about the future of the Uchiha clan. It can be vaguely seen that Sage of Six Paths is pessimistic about the future of the Uchiha clan. From this, it can be seen that the arrogance of the Uchiha clan, in addition to the great power brought by the Sharingan's Kekkei limit, is probably also influenced by the contents of this stone tablet. After all, anyone would feel a little smug after learning that they were the descendants of the Six Paths Sage, the founder of the ninja sect. The 3rd part, corresponding to the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, has very little content, and it only mentions one thing, which can be summed up as yin and yang unity, omniscience. The meaning of this part is very simple, that is, only by combining the yin release of the Uchiha clan and the yang release of the Senju clan, the yin and yang release of the Uchiha clan, can one obtain the power of the infinite manifestation, that is, the power of the Eye of Rinnegan, which represents the power of the Sage of Six Paths. And this is not only the way to obtain the Rinnegan, but also the method that the Sage of Six Paths left to the Uchiha clan to save themselves. Madara Uchiha obviously understood this point, so in the battle with Hashirama in the Valley of the End, he secretly hid a piece of Hashirama's flesh and blood, and by transplanting Hashirama's cells, he obtained the power of Hashirama's yang release, and finally completed the Gatha of yin and yang unity on the stone tablet, and obtained the Rinnegan that represents omniscience. Finally, the 4th part corresponding to the Rinnegan mentions the matter of the Otsutsuki Kagaya being sealed, and the worries of the Sage of Six Paths about the Otsutsuki clan. Reading the whole thing, this stone tablet can almost be regarded as a will left by the Sage of Six Paths to the Otsutsuki clan. It not only describes the origin of the Uchiha clan, but also mentions the chakra fruit, 10 tails, yin release, yang release, the method to evolve the Rinnegan, and finally the sealing of Otsutsuki Kagaya. Of course, this is the content after Hyojin excluded all the information related to the Eye of the Moon. Zetsu very cleverly implanted the Eye of the Moon project into the stone tablet. By tampering with the content of the Manjikyu Sharingan, he used the Sage of Six Paths concerns about the future of the Uchiha clan to introduce the Eye of the Moon project. Then in the part related to the Manjikyu Sharingan, the implementation steps of the Eye of the Moon project were mentioned, and this project was attributed to the Sage of Six Paths. The original intention of the stone tablet of the Sage of Six Paths is to hope that the Uchiha clan can comprehend the fusion of the Yin and Yang release, and the reconciliation between the Uchiha and Senju is the only way to truly save the Uchiha clan and obtain the power of the omniscient nature. But Zetsu confused this concept, tampered with the original intention of the Sage of Six Paths, and replaced the reconciliation between Uchiha and Senju with the Eye of the Moon project as the method left by the Sage of Six Paths to save the Uchiha clan. At that time, because of the death of his younger brother Uchiha Izuna, Uchiha Madara had just obtained the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, and his emotions were in turmoil, so after reading this part of the content, he had some clues in his heart. Later, he broke with Hashirama and tried to lead the Uchiha clan away from Mai, but he was opposed by all the Uchiha clan, and finally, he had to leave the village alone. At this time, his heart was filled with betrayal and pain, and the seeds in his heart quickly grew, and he began to plan the Eye of the Moon project, and began his path of redemption for the Uchiha clan. And the first step of the plan was to obtain the power of plenitude, so there was the later battle of the Valley of the End. This point, from the delayed use of the forbidden technique Izanagi, did not immediately resurrect in the middle of the battle, and continued to fight with Hashirama, but chose to fake his death to escape, and secretly hid a piece of Hashirama's flesh during the battle, and so on. It can be seen that this battle was premeditated by him, and not simply because of the discord between him and Hashirama, or because of loyalty. After withdrawing his gaze, Hyojin had a doubt in his heart. Black Zetsu has neither the Rinnegan nor the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, but not only can he identify the contents of the stone tablet left by the Sage of the Six Paths, but he can even tamper with it without anyone knowing. Even Madara, who has the Rinnegan, and Hyojin, who has the Tenseigan, can't distinguish the traces of tampering, which inevitably makes people a little confused. Did Kagaya inject a part of the Kekii chakra into him when she created Black Zetsu? Hyojin couldn't help but have such a guess. Because even if he has the Tenseigan, he can't tamper with the stone tablet left by the Sage of the Six Paths without leaving any traces, so in his view, Black Zetsu can do this because he used part of the power that Kagaya left in his body. This kind of method is actually not unusual. Take the current Naruto as an example. He should have 9 tails, 4 generations, Naruto, Kushina, and Otsutsuki Azura in his body, these 4 types of chakra. And in the original time and space, Naruto's body was even stuffed by Itachi with the power of his Manjikyu Sharingan. I don't know how much of Kagaya's power is left in Black Zetsu's body now. It's been 1,000 years. I don't think there's much left, right? But I have to be careful. His sneak attack on Madara was quite fierce. Chapter 430. In the original timeline, as the Jubi's Jinchuriki, Madara Uchiha was in the state of Six Paths. He was hit by Yakushi's Yakushi, and half of his body was kicked away, but he was still fine, and it only took a moment for him to recover. Such a recovery ability was almost invincible. But Black Zetsu was able to subdue him in one move. Even if there was a sneak attack, it is enough to show that Black Zetsu has the power to threaten a six-path level powerhouse. Hyojin is sure of this. At present, the only thing that Hyojin has doubts about is how much of the Kekii net left in Black Zetsu's body is left by Kagaya? How many times can it be used? If it can only be used once, then Black Zetsu will definitely be used at the most critical moment, that is, to use it on the Jubi's Jinchuriki, then the threat of Black Zetsu will be much smaller. But if this power can be used twice or even 3 times, then Black Zetsu will be a threat not inferior to Nagato and Obsidian, so he has to be extra careful. After calming down his thoughts, Hyojin's eyes scanned Jishuei and Itachi. What do you think about the contents of this stone tablet? Itachi looked serious. Genjutsu is genjutsu, falsehood is falsehood, infinite Tsukuyomi cannot bring peace to the shinobi world. There is no doubt that Itachi, who has the Manjikyu Sharingan technique, does not agree with the infinite Tsukuyomi plan on the stone tablet, even if this plan was proposed by Sage of Six Paths. Because Itachi knows better than anyone that the world of Tsukuyomi is artificially created, it is a false world. If even the world is false, then world peace would be meaningless. Jishuei also shook his head. This kind of peace obtained by fooling the will of others, I don't think it is true peace. At this time, although Jishuei still has the pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye sockets, because he has just completed the Hashirama cell transplantation surgery, his body has not fully recovered, so he can't use the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in the near future, so the content of the stone tablet is still the part of the Manjikyu Sharingan. As for the part of unity of yin and yang, omniscience, which requires the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan to interpret, Kuroto doesn't know yet. I'm relieved that you can recognize this. Hyojin was indeed relieved. Although he knew that Jishuei and Itachi would not be fooled by the Eye of the Moon plan on the stone tablet, he was still relieved to hear their opinions in person. Immediately after, Hyojin felt that it was extremely funny. Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Obsidian are not famous for their genjutsu attainment. Uchiha Obsidian is a complete warrior-type genjutsu, and they believe that this is the only way to save the shinobi world and bring peace to the shinobi world. On the contrary, Jishuei and Itachi, who have the highest attainments in genjutsu in the Uchiha clan, almost stand at the pinnacle of genjutsu in the entire shinobi world, are very resistant to the infinite Tsukuyomi plan. Putting away the idea of making fun of them, Hyojin asked Itachi, "Where are the ancient books?" Itachi immediately opened a hidden box in the secret room and took out a few ancient books with yellowed pages. They were obviously ancient books from a long time ago. Hyojin sat cross-legged and began to read these ancient books. However, after a moment, his brows tightened, because although these ancient books record the history of the Uchiha clan, but the whole story is about the Uchiha clan defeating a powerful shinobi clan in a certain year, and then defeating another powerful shinobi clan in a certain year, and so on. Although there may be some important information hidden in these books, it is hardly helpful for Hyojin to find a way to deal with the Obsidian. It seems that the Uchiha clan's research on the Manjikyu Sharingan, as well as the analysis of various pupil techniques, were all taken away by Madara. In this regard, although Hyojin had expected it, he still felt quite regretful. But this is also reasonable. After the Uchiha clan abandoned the Uchiha clan has regarded Mai's Uchiha clan as a traitor, so he naturally will not leave important information about the Manjikyu Sharingan to a group of traitors. The current collection of pupil techniques and forbidden techniques of the Uchiha clan is probably collected and sorted out by various means. Seeing the disappointment on Hyojin's face, Itachi asked, "Senpai, are these ancient books useless?" Nodding slightly, Hyojin said, "What I need are the ancient books on the research and analysis of the Manjikyu Sharingan in your clan." Itachi and Jishuei looked at each other and then shook their heads. After the Uchiha clan's departure, the Manjikyu Sharingan was almost a rumor for the Uchiha clan of Mai. Before Jishuei, not to mention awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan, there were not many people who knew about the Manjikyu Sharingan, so during this period, the research of the Uchiha clan on the Manjikyu Sharingan has been stagnant. Hyojin changed his mind and asked Itachi, if I and Jishuei are both dead, and Mai and the Uchiha clan are about to be destroyed by the Akatsuki organization, what would you do? Itachi was stunned for a moment and thought about it. Jishui also looked at Itachi curiously, waiting for his answer. After a while, Itachi said, "What about Yami-senpai and Kaze-senpai?" Hyojin was speechless for a while. "They are also finished, you are the only one left in Amatsukami." "It won't be like that." Itachi shook his head and said, "I will not be the last one to die." Hyojin said, "If you are lucky enough to survive to the end, what will you do?" Itachi said seriously, "I will find a way to improve my strength and stop the Akatsuki organization." "Yes, that's the idea." After a pause, Hyojin said, "Just think of it as if you are really in such a desperate situation, and make a good plan to improve your strength, and give it to me in 2 days." From the ancient books, Hyojin didn't find any information about the 2 divine artifacts, the Sword of Tenseigan and the Yagami Mirror. He wasn't sure when and how Itachi found these 2 divine artifacts, so he could only place his hope on this stupid method. Because after thinking about it for a long time, Kuroda felt that the Sword of 10 Punches was the best weapon to deal with Obito, who had both eyes and could instantly seal a target from a distance. As long as the timing was right, a single sword strike would be enough to completely eliminate the obsidian. This was far easier than using Izanami. After all, using Izanami not only required contact and recording to create a sealed fate circuit, but it also required the complete consumption of a Sharingan after the process was completed. Chapter 431. After leaving the Uchiha clan's Naka Shrine, Hyojin told Itachi to stay close to Jishui and protect Jishui through the adaptation period. After all, the elusive obsidian and the Mai clan's Orochimaru are both threats that can't be underestimated. Moreover, both of them have the motive to deal with Jishui, the current #1 expert of Uchiha clan, because to deal with the Uchiha clan, they must overcome Jishui. After saying goodbye to Jishui and Itachi, Hyojin walked slowly in the direction of his home under the quiet moonlight. On the way, Hyojin thought about the changes that happened during the day while secretly rejoicing. Kuroda should indeed be thankful that he didn't become arrogant after obtaining the Tenseigan, exposing his identity to the public and exposing himself to the eyes of his enemies. If that's the case, he should be on tenterhooks right now and always be on guard against Obsidian's plot. And judging from the way Obsidian plotted against 4 generations Naruto, he is the kind of guy who can give up his bottom line in order to achieve his goal. If he really wants to plot against Hyojin, then everything and everyone around Hyojin will become his target. At that time, Hyojin will really be impossible to guard against. Fortunately, Kuroda has been hiding himself and Amatsukami very well, so it is unlikely that the Obito would focus his attention on him, the captain of Konohamabu, so the probability of the Obito specifically targeting him is very small. And because of Amatsukami's deep cover, it has actually restrained Obsidian, so Obsidian and Akatsuki dare not act rashly. They are probably investigating Amatsukami's traces all over the world right now, right? Hyojin raised the corner of his mouth and smiled. Before finding Amatsukami, who is ready to take advantage of the situation, Akatsuki shouldn't dare to divert their attention to deal with the 5 great shinobi villages. After all, the lesson from last time was too deep. Even Nagato, who has the Rinnegan, almost lost his life. Even if Akatsuki is reluctant, they have to admit that Amatsukami is a real threat to them. The Obsidian would not be distracted by destroying the Uchiha clan like he did in the original timeline. However, if they didn't make a move on Mai and the Uchiha clan, they would never be able to find any leads on Amatsukami. This was undoubtedly a vicious cycle. In my guest house, Kimimaro looked at the night scene outside the window with a complicated expression. The previous scenes kept flashing in his mind, especially the scene of Hyojin mocking Orochimaru. It was even more unforgettable, and his killing intent was boiling. Suddenly, a black shadow quietly entered the room. "Who?" Kimimaro quickly turned around and stared coldly at the intruder. The black shadow smiled and said, as expected of Kimimaro, "Do?" Kimimaro's face sank as he asked, "What do you want from me?" Do was Orochimaru's research assistant and intelligence officer, and Kimimaro's shinobi group was Orochimaru's direct subordinate. Therefore, Kimimaro and Do weren't subordinates but colleagues. That's why Kimimaro didn't speak politely to Do. Do adjusted his glasses and smiled. "I heard about what happened during the day. How do you feel about defeating the genius of the Uchiha clan?" "The genius of the Uchiha clan? Humph, he can't even withstand a single blow." Because the victory was too easy, Kimimaro didn't feel any sense of accomplishment. Do said casually, "Yes, compared to Hyojin who betrayed Orochimaru-sama, the kid of the Uchiha clan isn't worth mentioning." Hearing Do mention Hyojin, Kimimaro's face suddenly became gloomy. Kimimaro didn't care about other people's insults, but he couldn't ignore Orochimaru's insult. Not to mention that Hyojin not only betrayed Orochimaru, but also ridiculed Orochimaru. This was unbearable for him. After a while, Kimimaro seemed to have made up his mind and asked, "Do you know his address?" Do was surprised. "What do you want?" "This is my..." Kimimaro said coldly, "Tell me his address. You don't need to care about other things." Do hesitated for a long time, then handed Kimimaro a piece of paper and said, "Be careful. If there's no chance, don't make a move." Whoosh! Kimimaro coldly took the note and didn't say anything. He turned around and disappeared from the room. After Kimimaro left, a strange smile appeared on Do's face. Just like Kimimaro was jealous of Uchiha, Do was also jealous of Orochimaru's experimental assistant, Hyojin. Every time Orochimaru mentioned Hyojin in front of him, his hatred would deepen. At this moment, a hoarse voice suddenly came from behind Do. "Do, I don't remember allowing you to do this kind of thing." Do's whole body seemed to be struck by lightning. He trembled and turned around. He knelt on the ground and said respectfully, "Orochimaru-sama." Orochimaru slowly walked out of the shadow. "Aren't you going to give me an explanation?" Do's forehead and cheeks were covered in a layer of sweat. He swallowed and explained, "Orochimaru-sama, I just wanted to help you get rid of the traitor." "Is that so?" With a smile, Orochimaru looked out of the window. "Get up." Seeing that Orochimaru didn't seem to blame him, Do let out a sigh of relief. As he got up, he realized that if Orochimaru had objected to what he had done, he would have stopped him. He wouldn't have waited for Kimimaro to leave. Looking at the night view of my outside the window, Orochimaru said lightly, "It's good to test him. I don't like that guy anymore." At first, Orochimaru planned to use the impure earth reincarnation to give his teacher, the 3 generations Naruto, a hard time during the alliance ceremony. When he thought that his teacher, the 3 generations Naruto, would be forced to fight against his teacher, the first Naruto and the second Naruto. The scene of the 3 Naruto fighting in my made Orochimaru very excited. For him, besides pursuing the profound meaning of immortality, destroying everything that his teacher, the 3 generations Naruto cherished, had become his only pleasure. However, he didn't expect that the defense of Mai was much tighter than what the spy had reported. Moreover, the representatives of the Sand Crypsis village, the Kuzunobi village, and the Takanobi village were also quite strong. Therefore, he didn't take the risk to launch an attack during the ceremony. After all, the impure earth reincarnation of the first and second generations was still in the experimental state. He didn't know how strong they were. On the other side, on the street of Mai, Kimimaro's whole body turned into a black shadow, avoiding the moonlight and the pedestrians. He quickly moved through the darkness. Chapter 432. Today is really tiring. A Konoha ninja who was patrolling the streets was smoking while complaining to his companions around him. His companion also said, "Yes, but fortunately, no one is making trouble. I maintained a high level of security, but it didn't come without a price." The most obvious one was that the workload of the ninjas on duty had increased a lot. The smoking ninja threw the cigarette butt on the ground, then stepped on it and extinguished the sparks. "It's already so late. I don't think there will be any more problems." Suddenly, a black shadow appeared from a dark corner and accurately punched the ninja's throat. The my ninja who was suddenly attacked didn't even have the time to call for help. He fell to the ground and fainted. The other my ninja was shocked and said, "You." As soon as he said that, a sharp pain came from his abdomen. Then, his whole body was thrown out by the huge force from his abdomen. He crashed heavily into the corner of the wall and fainted. "How can I be so weak?" Kimimaro slowly put down his right foot, and a trace of doubt flashed in his cold eyes. Because of his young age and simple mind, Kimimaro was completely reliant on Orochimaru and Do for information about the outside world. Except for killing some bandits and traitorous ninjas under Orochimaru's arrangement, his contact with the outside world was very limited, and he didn't know much about the ninja world. In his mind, the enemies should be strong, but suddenly, they couldn't even withstand a single blow. This was Kimimaro's current feeling. Looking at the two unconscious my ninjas on the ground, Kimimaro thought, "Orochimaru Sama wouldn't lie to me. It seems that I have become stronger." Kimimaro didn't know that he was actually in a high position in the ninja world. In his normal state, his strength was close to that of a jonin, and when he used the curse seal, his strength was close to that of an elite jonin. No matter which village he was in, he was an elite. This was also the main reason why Orochimaru acquiesced when Do instigated him to deal with Hyojin. Although Konoha's security has increased a lot, most of them are concentrated in the core areas such as the Hokage building, Konoha Hospital, Root Base, and so on. Although there are many patrols in the ordinary residential areas, these patrols composed of Chunin and Genin naturally can't stop Kimimaro. After dragging the two unconscious my ninjas into the shadow of the street, Kimimaro identified the direction and immediately disappeared like a ghost. After crossing a few blocks, Kimimaro landed on the roof of a house. Standing on the roof, Kuroto glanced coldly at a small courtyard across the street. According to the information given to him by Kuroto, the courtyard in front of him is Kuroto's home. "I will make you pay." After making up his mind, Kimimaro's figure flickered as he crossed the street and quietly sneaked into the courtyard. After quietly listening in the courtyard for a while and confirming that no one in the house had noticed him, he lightly tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and leaped into the house through the window on the second floor. Although there was no light in the house, the moonlight was bright, so he could see everything in the house. "You?" Kimimaro was shocked because he found that Hyojin was sitting in the house, looking at him calmly. There was no change in his face, as if he had expected it. Hyojin smiled faintly and said, "It seems that my luck is not bad." The reason why Kuroto deliberately provoked Orochimaru on the street before was to lure Kimimaro to his door. Because of the Obito incident, he felt a lot of pressure, and he had to speed up his Kekkai Genkai plan. If he took the initiative to find Orochimaru and asked for Orochimaru's cells, not only would it waste time and energy, but it would also be seen through by Orochimaru, who was also a researcher. Therefore, at that time, Suijin had the idea of luring Kimimaro to take the initiative to come to him. However, the village was under martial law, so he wasn't sure if Kimimaro had the guts to come to his door, so he could only wait at home and try his luck. "So, you were prepared." Kimimaro quickly hid the shock on his face and took out a kunai from the storage bag on his waist. He said coldly, "That's good too. I also want to have a fair fight with you." "Silly boy, a fair fight is just a story in a novel," Yizichin said. Then, Hyojin slowly reached out his right hand to Kimimaro. In an instant, Kimimaro felt an unprecedented suction force pulling his body. His tender body, which was only 10 years old, could not resist the pull of this huge suction force. He instantly lost his balance, and was pulled towards Kuroto. What technique is this? Kimamaro's face couldn't remain cold anymore. Bang! Soon, Kimamaro's body was sucked into Hyojin's right hand, and there was a deep sound of a palm hitting his chest. Kimamaro was shocked, and wanted to use the teleportation technique to temporarily pull away from Hyojin. However, he suddenly found that the chakra in his body was not under his control. At this time, from the corner of his eyes, he noticed that under Suijin's right hand that was pressing on his chest, there were many ink-colored seals spreading out. These ink-colored sealing spells were like chains, spreading in all directions with his chest as the center. In a breath's time, they had covered his entire body. Kimamaro was startled and said in surprise, "You can use the sealing technique without a seal? If it's only at this level, I can still use the sealing technique without a seal." Hyojin retracted his right hand and walked towards the cabinet on the wall. Kimamaro, who was bound by the 4-symbol seal, gritted his teeth and wanted to use the seal to forcefully break the 4-symbol seal's control over his body. When Hyojin came to the cabinet, he didn't even turn his head. Instead, he rummaged in the cabinet and said, "Are you sure you want to do this? If this gets out, Orochimaru will be in trouble." Hearing Hyojin mention Orochimaru, Kimamaro's face flashed with hesitation. At this time, Hyojin walked over with a large tray of blood samples and cell tissue tools. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, I won't do anything to you." Looking at the smile on Hyojin's face, Kimamaro suddenly had a bad feeling. Chapter 433. Because of his rich experience of participating in Orochimaru's experiments, Kimamaro quickly calmed down and recognized the various instruments on the tray in Kuroto's hand. "What do you want?" Kimamaro frowned. The 2 red dots on his eyebrows were almost squeezed together. Hyojin smiled and said, "As my prisoner, shouldn't you pay some ransom? Don't worry, I won't take your life. I just want to collect some of your cells. I'm not any less curious about the bone vein than Orochimaru." Kimamaro knew that Kuroto used to be Orochimaru's experimental assistant and also a researcher, so he didn't doubt Kuroto's words. He just said coldly, "I lost to you this time because I was careless. Next time you won't be so relaxed." Hyojin collected Kimamaro's cells and didn't pay attention to Kimamaro. Kimamaro was also unyielding, so he didn't say anything. He silently accepted it as a loser. Considering that there weren't many opportunities to collect like this, Hyojin collected twice the normal amount. He also took a small amount of Kimamaro's blood and hair. After storing all the collected samples, Suijin remembered the cause of Kimamaro's death in the original timeline and asked casually, "By the way, is there any change in your body recently?" Kimamaro's eyes narrowed. "How did you know?" He didn't have time to tell Orochimaru about what Lotus told him, so he was surprised how Hyojin knew. Hyojin then asked, "Is it a blood disease? What's the treatment plan for Orochimaru?" Kimamaro's face was full of doubt, but he still replied, "I haven't told Orochimaru-sama yet. If you don't want to die, you'd better tell Orochimaru about this matter immediately. If he intervenes early enough, you may be able to survive." Kuroto was taken aback for a moment before saying, "If you don't want to die, you'd better tell Orochimaru about this matter immediately." Kimamaro said coldly, "You don't need to care about my matters." Hyojin smiled and removed the 4-symbol seal on Kimamaro's body. Kuroto didn't say this out of kindness. His main purpose was to understand Orochimaru's research progress on the corpse bone vein through Orochimaru's treatment plan for blood disease Genkai. If the bloodline of the Kagaya clan could really be traced back to the ancestor of chakra, Otsutsuki Kagaya, then the upper limit of the power of the corpse bone bloodline would be very high. It should be noted that the mutual death gray bones that Kagaya used was a killing technique that would kill anyone who touched it. It didn't matter if it was yin-yang release or immortal arts, none of them would be able to block it. Okay, you can go now. After a pause, Hyojin warned, this is the number of people who can kill you can't be counted with two hands. If you dare to act recklessly again, even Orochimaru won't be able to save you. Kimimaro snorted, then his body flashed and disappeared from the room. After Kimimaro left, Hyojin murmured, I need to speed up the progress of the blood sequence net plan. I'm afraid Nagato and Obsidian won't give me too much time. Thinking of this, Hyojin summoned a ninja crow in a secret underground base of the Akatsuki. A whirlpool suddenly appeared, and Obsidian, who had his left eye back, walked out of the whirlpool. He took off the mask on his face and threw it aside. Zetsu walked over and observed Obsidian's left eye. He asked, how does this left eye feel? How long do you need to activate the Manjikyu Sharingan? Obsidian replied, it's already a Manjikyu Sharingan. Zetsu was a little surprised and praised, as expected of the person chosen by Madara. No, it was already a Manjikyu Sharingan before I took it back. Saying that, Obsidian fell into a short memory and sighed, Kakashi's talent is really… Zetsu was surprised and said, he activated the Manjikyu Sharingan? A ninja who didn't have the bloodline of Uchiha, nor the bloodline of Thousand Hands, and didn't have much to do with the descendants of the Sage of Six Paths, could actually evolve the Manjikyu Sharingan into the Manjikyu Sharingan with his own talent. Such talent was really amazing. It seemed that he didn't want to mention Kakashi, so Obsidian asked, forget it, let's get down to business. How is Nagato's body? Zetsu laughed and said, hey, it's unexpectedly good. The Uzumaki clan and the Thousand Hands clan are really close relative. It's much easier to fuse the bloodline than I thought. Obsidian said in a low voice, I hope we're doing the right thing. Obsidian knew very well that if Nagato was too strong, it would be disadvantageous to his control. However, in the previous battle in the Hidden Rain Village, he almost lost the Rinnegan, the core of the Eye of the Moon project, so he had to make a compromise and share the first-generation cell transplantation technology with Nagato. But it can be foreseen that the enhanced Nagato will be more difficult to control, which is one of the reasons why he made up his mind to retrieve the left eye. Zetsu reported to Obsidian, the investigation of Amatsukami is still fruitless. It seems that they don't exist. Whether it is the Snow Clan or the Magnetic Sand Crypsis village, there are no useful clues. They seem to have appeared out of thin air, and they don't have the interpersonal relationships that normal people should have. Continue to investigate, we must find them. As he said, Obsidian walked to a high wall. This high wall, upon closer inspection, was filled with hidden boxes for storing Sharingan. Each hidden box stored a Sharingan of 3 Magatama, stacked layer upon layer, filling up the entire wall. These are all the collections of Uchiha Madara. As the former patriarch of the Uchiha clan, he also brought all the Sharingan collected by the Uchiha clan over the years out of Mai before he left. Standing in front of the wall where the Sharingan is stored, Obito took off his robe and said to Zetsu, I need to transplant 1 or 2 more Sharingan as a sacrifice to activate Izanagi. Zetsu asked, where do you want to transplant them? My back. After a pause, Obsidian continued, I don't want to see these eyes. After thinking for a while, Zetsu said, if it is not implanted in the eye socket and connected to the optic nerve, I am afraid there will be a certain rejection, the success rate of the transplant is not high. Obsidian said lightly, it doesn't matter, there are enough Sharingan here, it doesn't matter how many times we fail. He knew very well that if it was not implanted in the eye socket, not only would the success rate of the transplant not be high, but the effect of activating Izanagi would also be greatly reduced. But this did not affect him much because he had 2 Shinweis. He could perfectly connect Izanagi. I will arrange the surgery for you as soon as possible. As if thinking of something, Zetsu continued, "By the way, Nagato seems to be planning something recently." Obsidian frowned and asked, "What is he doing?" Zetsu spread his hands and said, "It seems like he wants to make me feel pain or something like that." Chapter 434. Because no one died, although the attack on the patrol team caused a small commotion, it was quickly calmed down by the leaders of my village. In this regard, Kuroda can understand. Kakashi being attacked means that there are signs of Akatsuki's activities in the village, so at times like this, it's important to stay calm and not panic. Early the next morning, Hyojin left a shadow clone to replace him on duty, while his main body quietly left my village with Kimimura's cell sample. Flying all the way, it didn't take long for him to arrive at the Sky Fortress located on the eastern sea of the Land of Fire. During this time, under the control of 3 generations of Kazekage puppets, the Sky Fortress has been following the thick clouds, drifting over the sea. Because it's hiding in the layers of clouds, even if a fishing boat happens to pass by, it won't be able to detect the Sky Fortress in the sky, so it's very hidden and safe. However, as the Sky Fortress had been hidden in the clouds for a long time, it had no choice but to keep the defensive barrier open to resist the corrosion of the structure of the Sky Fortress from the moisture in the clouds. Fortunately, the energy source of the Sky Fortress was Shino, the Morio's Jinchuriki. If it was any other energy source, it might not have been able to sustain such a high consumption. In the secret laboratory, Hyojin first checked the ghost sprout that he cultivated before. As expected, among the many embryos, there are 2 ghost sprout that successfully fused with Hyojin's cell and became ghost sprout that can be transplanted by Hyojin. Looking at the 2 gelatinous sprouts in the container, Hyojin found it hard to equate them with the thick gelatinous substance that gushed out of Hirako's body during the Kekei Genkai ceremony. I must be careful. The young sprout in front of him seems harmless, but in fact, it's a monster that can fuse with flesh and blood. If he loses control of it, the consequences will be unimaginable, so Hyojin secretly warned himself. After some time of research and analysis, Kuroda had gained a deeper understanding of Hirako's chimera technique. Hirako's thought process can be clearly seen from the Kekei Genkai fusion ritual he designed. He loosened the restrictions on the demon sprout in order to enhance the demon sprout's ability to fuse with flesh and blood, thus increasing the success rate of the ritual. Hirako didn't seem to have done anything wrong in terms of design alone. After all, the success rate of the bloodline fusion ritual was the most important. If the ritual failed, he would die on the spot, and the consequences would be meaningless to him. However, Hirako had obviously underestimated the hidden dangers brought about by relaxing the restrictions on the demon sprout. The Oni sprout's ability to fuse with flesh and blood is simply too strong, and the Oni sprout has its own consciousness. Not only was it able to repair Hirako's body when he was injured and unconscious, it was also able to save his life. He can also forcibly seize control of Hirako's body while he is still conscious, causing him to suffer from a backlash. Therefore, it is difficult for Hyojin to judge whether Hirako is controlling the demon sprout at the moment or the demon sprout is controlling Hirako. Rubbing his chin, Hyojin thought to himself, "It seems that I still need to find someone else to explore the way." Kuroda admired Hirako's courage to cross the river by groping for stones, but on the road of scientific research, one can't make the slightest mistake. Once he makes a mistake, he will end up like Hirako, unable to turn the situation around. Therefore, he needs some lab rats to explore the way for him. Who should I choose? Several candidates suddenly flashed in Hyojin's mind. Only Danzo, Orochimaru, and a few others have the ability and financial resources to invest in the development of the demon sprout. Due to their past friendship, Hyojin doesn't want to push Orochimaru to death. Not to mention, Orochimaru's talent in scientific research is extremely high. He should be able to see the hidden dangers of the demon sprout. I've decided on you, Danzo. After thinking for a while, Hyojin finally made his decision. Danzo is the kind of person who dares to make bold changes to his own body, and he is also one of the higher-ups of Mai. With power and influence, he is enough to support the development of the demon sprout. Most importantly, Danzo is ambitious. Others may be able to resist the temptation of the demon sprout technique and see the hidden dangers behind it, but Danzo is absolutely unable to resist this kind of temptation. After packing up the original demon sprout seedling and the demon sprout technique scroll, Hyojin thought to himself, "I'll sell these things for 50 million, it's not too expensive, right?" After dealing with the demon sprout technique, Hyojin calmed his thoughts and began the cell fusion experiment with the wind release clone. As usual, before the cell fusion, Kimamaro's cells need to be filtered to remove the chakra attribute other than the wind attribute chakra. Also, because Kimamaro's body was sealed by Orochimaru, Kimamaro's cells need to be filtered to remove the chakra from the chakra. The filtering process lasted for 3 days. Out of nearly 200 sets of containers, 17 of them had survived the filtration phase of the centrifuge and still maintained strong cell activity. During the filtering process, Hyojin found that Kimamaro's cells contained a large proportion of Yang attribute chakra. This was in line with his previous guess. The Kagaya clan of the corpse Bone Meridian probably inherited the Otsutsuki Himura's immortal body. However, compared to the Senpai clan that inherited the Otsutsuki Himura's immortal body, their strength was slightly weaker. Because of this, Kimamaro's cells were so tough. After the filtering process was completed, the most difficult step was the cell fusion. When he was cloning the fire release clone, Hyojin was stuck in this step for a long time. After consuming a lot of money and manpower, he had to make a compromise and chose the only successful female clone. However, to Hyojin's surprise, the fusion of Kimamaro's cells and his cells was unusually smooth. Out of the 17 sets, 10 sets completed the cell fusion. 10 sets of embryos that completed the cell fusion, with a little cultivation, could be cultivated into 10 clones. This was beyond Hyojin's expectation. The Hyuga clan and the Kagaya clan are really relatives. There is indeed a rumor in the family that the Hyuga clan and Kagaya clan have been friends for generations, but the relationship between the two clans is completely in the hands of the main family. As a member of the branch family, Hyojin is not too clear about this. Because of the several shinobi wars, the Hyuga clan and Kagaya clan belonged to the Mai clan and the Mist village respectively, so the relationship between the two clans was gradually severed. But now it seems that the possibility of the Hyuga clan and the Kagaya clan being relatives is very high. Chapter 435. Don't just rely on your eyes. Organs like your ears and nose can also help you sense your surroundings. Don't hesitate. You'll lose if you do. Is this all you've got? Punches like this won't kill you. You have to learn to play to your strength. After using sand to protect your vital parts, trading blows with blows is also a good tactic, Hyojin instructed Gaara as he practiced with him. From Hyojin's point of view, he did not need to spend too much effort to learn those high-level ninjutsu when he was too young. What he really needed to work hard on was the training of his physical skills and the control of his chakra. Physical skills training could not only train a ninja's physique and willpower, but it could also improve a ninja's insight and judgment between life and death. These were exactly what experts needed the most in a duel. Therefore, Hyojin did not ask Gaara to spend a lot of time practicing how to control the sand to attack. Instead, he only asked him to maintain a small amount of sand control. The amount of sand control was never the key. The key was the precision and speed of the control. As for the amount, when Gaara grew up and could control a guardian crane in his body, he would be able to control as much sand as he wanted with his chakra. There was no shortcut to improve the precision and speed of sand control. The only way was to improve it bit by bit through long periods of practice. Not only could this kind of practice hone his chakra's precision control, but it could also allow his body to slowly adapt to sand control. Over time, some sand control techniques that required concentration would become subconscious movements of his body. He would not need to exert much strength as his body would be able to perform them naturally. Bang! Amidst the muffled sound, Hyojin's fist hit the sand wall that protected Gaara's chest again. After retreating, Hyojin smiled and said, "Very good. Your sand control speed is obviously faster than before." Huff, huff, the young Gaara panted violently. His chest heaved up and down like a bellows, but his young face was full of joy. It was as if the fatigue of his body was nothing compared to Hyojin's praise. Seeing this, Hyojin sighed to himself, "Sigh, he's also a child who lacks love." After sighing, he shifted his gaze to the ball of fine sand surrounding Gaara. As a matter of fact, even if Gaara didn't control the sand around him that contained his mother's chakra would automatically protect him from harm. But this kind of protection is limited to the level of Genin and Chunin. Once Gaara encounters a Jonin or an elite Jonin level enemy, the speed at which the sand automatically protects itself will not be able to keep up. During the Chunin exam in the original timeline, after the Genin Xiaoli removed the lead that bound her legs, her attack speed faintly exceeded the speed of Gaara's sand's automatic protection. When Xiaoli activated the 8 inner gates forbidden technique, her attack speed obviously surpassed the speed of Gaara's sand's automatic protection, and she could easily hit Gaara. Therefore, relying on the sand's automatic protection, Gaara might be able to run amok at the level of Genin and Chunin. However, if he encountered an expert whose attack speed surpassed the speed of the sand's automatic protection, he would become very passive, just like during the Chunin exam in the original timeline. He could only look around blankly and get hit like a fool. After catching his breath, Gaara said respectfully, "Sir, you're right. After reducing the amount of sand control, it's much easier to control the sand than before." Hyojin nodded and said, "I've temporarily sealed the guardian crane in your body, so with your current chakras amount, controlling too much sand won't play the role of training and will only add to your burden. Moreover, as long as you control it properly, even a small ball of sand will be enough to help you resist the vast majority of attacks." Gaara replied in a well-behaved manner, "I understand." Hyojin said again, "Remember, whether it's eating or resting, you must always maintain control of the sand, let your body slowly form a habit, and treat the sand as a part of your body. Hee Gaara, you can do it." At this time, a little girl's cheer came from the side. Hyojin's face sank when he heard this, and he moved his eyes to the side of the field. He had to admit that he underestimated the physique of the Uzumaki clan. Originally, he thought that Xiang Lin had suffered too much in the grass village. She was small and skinny, so he didn't let her participate in any ninja training, nor did he restrict her diet. But he didn't think that Xiang Lin, as a Uzumaki clan member, had amazing resilience. In just 1 or 2 months, she turned from a skinny little girl to a chubby little girl. Hyojin said with a straight face, "Xiang Lin, it's your turn." "Ah." Xiang Lin, who was holding a wheat cake, opened her mouth in shock, and the wheat cake crumbs fell to the ground. "What are you doing? Come here." With a light snort, Hyojin then said sternly, "From today on, you also have to accept ninja training. If you don't pass, you will have to starve." Hearing this, Xiang Lin hurriedly hid the remaining half of the wheat cake in her hand into her small bag, and then walked over with a pout. Being hungry would remind her of her time in Kusanabu village, and it was the most unbearable thing for her. Hyojin stared at little Xiang Lin and asked, "Do you know how to extract chakra?" Xiang Lin nodded. "Very good." After a pause, Hyojin said, "From now on, your daily course will be the same as mine, also physical training, plus chakra control training." Xiang Lin quickly asked, Do I also have to practice sand control? Hyojin shook his head and said, No, you have to practice the sealing technique. Xiang Lin was a talented child in the Maelstrom clan, so as long as she was carefully guided, her future achievements would be limitless. After guiding Xiang Lin on some key points of physical training, Hyojin handed Xiang Lin over to Gaara. Although Gaara's physical skills were not too outstanding, it was more than enough to guide Xiang Lin, who was a blank piece of paper. Moreover, communicating with peers was sometimes more efficient than communicating with teachers and elders. Caw, after dealing with the two little guys, Hyojin was about to return to the laboratory when a faint crow's cry came from outside. Walking to the outer platform of the Sky Fortress, Hyojin opened a small area of the barrier and let a ninja crow in. There was a small storage scroll tied to the ninja crow's leg. After Hyojin opened the scroll, he gently pressed it with his thumb. Boom! Suddenly, a white smoke filled the air, and several ancient scrolls appeared on the storage scroll, plus a letter with ink that was still wet. Chapter 436. This crow was specially sent by Hyojin to collect Kimimara's cells that night. Now that the 4 generations Mizukage Yagura has become his subordinate, then the Mist Village's database is also Amatsukumi's database. And after the Mist Village destroyed the Kagaya clan, they seized a large number of ancient books, and these ancient books are the best historical materials to explore the origin of the Kagaya clan. Perhaps he can find some information about the Hyuga clan from them. Returning to the laboratory, Suijin temporarily put aside the ancient scroll and opened the letter that was still wet with ink. This letter was written by Yagura. In the letter, he mentioned that the Mist Village recently received a secret invitation from Mai, inviting him as the Mizukage to my village to hold a new round of the Gakage meeting. The purpose of Yagura writing this letter is to ask Hyojin whether he wants to participate in the secret Gakage meeting held in my village or not. Putting down the letter, Hyojin thought to himself, when did the village send such an invitation? How come I didn't even get wind of it? Immediately, Kuroto was relieved. With the failure of the joint raid on the Akatsuki organization by Mai, Kumo, and Sand Crypsis, as well as the exposure of the fact that the 4 generations Mizukage was secretly controlled by the Akatsuki organization, the fact that the Akatsuki organization has the ability to threaten the Kaga-level shinobi is no longer rare in the shinobi world. Therefore, for the sake of safety, the Gakage meeting that could be held openly in the past can only be held in secret. Otherwise, if the Akatsuki organization notices the whereabouts of the Kage, then the Kages who leave the village are likely to become the targets of the Akatsuki organization. It seems that the 3 generations haven't been idle either. The corner of Hyojin's mouth rose and he secretly sighed. The 3 generations first won over the surrounding small shinobi villages such as Kusanagi Village, Takanobi Village, and Sound Village, and through a grand alliance ceremony, all of them were tied to the chariot of Mai. Moreover, the pressure on the border of the Land of Fire was reduced, so that Mai could retract his power and clench his fingers into a fist. Then, the 3 generations conspired to hold a new round of the Gakage meeting. Even Kuroto couldn't help but praise Sandaime-sama for grasping the perfect timing this time. First of all, Sunagakure has already formed an alliance with Konoha, so they will definitely support Konoha in holding the Gakage summit, and the Kazekage will definitely attend. Kumo's Jinchuriki is still in the hands of the Akatsuki organization, and whether he is alive or not is still unknown. In the mist, the probability is that the Kaga-level Jinchuriki is very high. Kageki organizations Koso, no clan organizations, Jinchuriki organizations, Ryoshi organization. 4 of the village of the clan meeting, and even if the Rock Village, if dozen organizations, if Kue Kizi Sho organization, and the Village Kami organization. There is no doubt that from this series of arrangements alone, it can be seen that the three generations have realized that no village is the Akatsuki organization's opponent in a one-on-one fight, so they began to secretly weave a big net for the Akatsuki organization, waiting for the Akatsuki organization to drill into it. This time, if it weren't for the fact that the Mizukage himself is Hyojin's subordinate, and even the Umbu squad leader Hyojin would have been kept in the dark by the three generations, it can be seen that this Gakage meeting is very secretive. Without much hesitation, Hyojin wrote the word "approved" on the letter, then sealed the letter in a small storage scroll, tied it to the leg of the Kami crow, and sent it away. For the three generations plan, Kuroto is naturally happy to see it come to fruition. Next, Hyojin began to read the ancient books of the Kagaya clan that were sent by Yagura. Not only did these ancient scrolls contain the genealogy of the Splendor Knight clan's 1,000 years of history, there were also secret scrolls that recorded the Splendor Knight clan's various secret techniques and forbidden technique. The secret scroll even contained the Splendor Knight clan's thousands of years of research on the corpse bone bloodline. Blood-changing ritual? Soon, the content of one of the pages attracted Hyojin's attention. According to the Kagaya clan's nearly 1,000 years of research, they found that the higher the talent, the more thoroughly the corpse bone bloodline was excavated, the shorter the lifespan. And after dissecting the corpses of the Kagaya clan, they were surprised to find that there was a toxin-like substance that was rooted in the corpse bone bloodline, so the higher the talent, the more thoroughly the corpse bone bloodline was excavated, the shorter the lifespan. The corpse bone vein was the foundation of the Kwai Knight clan's fame, and it was what they relied on to dominate during the chaotic warring states period. Therefore, the higher-ups of the Kwai Knight clan immediately sealed off this discovery and began to research it in secret. In order to break this curse that threatened the continuation of the family, the higher-ups of the Splendor Knight clan conducted countless inhumane human experiments. After sacrificing a large number of innocent clansmen, they finally discovered that this poison that was rooted in the corpse bone veins mainly resided in the human body's blood system. As long as the blood was changed, the poison's harm to the body would be greatly reduced. Afterward, the Kagaya clan also found a kind of herb. If this herb was refined into a pill and used together with the blood-changing ritual, it could completely eliminate the toxins. So it's not like Kimimaro has the blood inheritance disease, but the entire Kagaya clan has it. After understanding this, Kuroto frowned, got up, and went to the breeding room. In the breeding room, there were 2 large nutrition tanks, each with a clone body. Although there are as many as 10 embryos that have completed cell fusion, with Kuroto's current financial resources, it is impossible for him to cultivate all of them at once, so he can only choose 2 embryos with the strongest activity and cultivate them first. Even if he used the Tenseigan chakra, it would take more than a month to cultivate the embryos. Therefore, the wind release clone in the nutrition tank was only the size of a palm. Looking at the 2 clones, Hyojin thought, if the entire Kagaya clan is affected by this blood inheritance disease, then my wind release clone might not be able to escape. The wind release clone cells were collected from Kimimaro. At the time of the collection, Kimimaro was already suffering from the blood inheritance disease, so his cells should contain the toxins. According to the secret scroll, only blood changing could remove the toxins. However, not everyone's blood could be used. It had to be from the same clan, and it had to be the same clan that didn't have the blood inheritance disease. In other words, it had to be the Kagaya clan that hadn't awakened the corpse bone bloodline, or the Kagaya clan that had gone through the blood-changing ritual and no longer had toxins in their bodies. But now that the Kagaya clan was exterminated, this kind of people had already disappeared. While thinking about how to get rid of the Kagaya clan's blood inheritance disease, a thought suddenly flashed in Hyojin's mind. Why does the Kagaya clan's corpse bone bloodline have a toxin that even the Kagaya clan can't resist? Chapter 437. For Hyojin, who had concocted compound toxins, He was no stranger to biological toxins or mineral toxins. Therefore, he knew very well that in the natural world, plants and animals that carried toxins were often immune to their own toxins and would not be harmed by their own toxins. This was not something miraculous. It was merely because the animals and plants that could not do this had long gone extinct and disappeared in the vast history, becoming a speck of dust in the evolution of animals and plants. This was the survival of the fittest. However, the fact that the Kagaya clan was able to survive for thousands of years in the shinobi world shows that the toxin rooted in the corpse bone vein does not directly affect the inheritance of the Kagaya clan to a certain extent. It only limits the upper limit of the Kagaya clan's strength and limits the development of the corpse bone vein. And this characteristic reminded Hyojin of the Uchiha clan's Manjikyu Sharingan. But because the bloodline of the Sage of Six Paths has gradually thinned over thousands of years of reproduction, resulting in a single Uchiha clansman being unable to support the huge consumption of the Manjikyu Sharingan, making the awakening of the Manjikyu Sharingan a curse that will inevitably lead to blindness. The Uchiha clan had been troubled by this problem for a long time, but they finally found a solution. That is, by fusing with the Manjikyu Sharingan of a blood relative, he can permanently enhance his pupillary powers, solving the fundamental problem of his own Manjikyu Sharingan, allowing his Manjikyu Sharingan to evolve into an eternal Manjikyu Sharingan that will never go blind. Could it be that the Splendor Knight clan's immortal bloodline is thin due to 1,000 years of reproduction, so they can't support an overly powerful bloodline limit? After this thought appeared in his mind, Hyojin quickly realized that if this guess was correct, then the mysterious substance that was rooted in the corpse bone vein was not a simple poison. Hyojin had always been a man of action. After he had his speculations, he did not continue to make wild guesses. Instead, he began to experiment. Now that he knew that this toxin was hidden in the blood of the Kagaya clan, Suijin took out the blood sample collected from Kimimaro and tried to extract the toxin to study what kind of substance it was. At first, the extraction process was very smooth. Hyojin quickly found the poison in Kimimaro's blood. He used the simplest method to extract the poison. However, in the process of gradual purification, Hyojin encountered a huge problem. He was surprised to find out that once the toxin in Kimimaro's blood reached a certain level of purity, there was no container in his laboratory that could contain it. Even the strengthened experimental containers would immediately collapse and turn into ashes after coming in contact with the toxin. Hyojin fell into an awkward situation where there was no container that could contain the toxin so that he could continue purifying it. This phenomenon made Hyojin think of a technique, and that was Kagaya's shared death gray bones. Kagaya's shared death gray bones had the property of dying upon contact. The victim's body would collapse and scatter with the wind like withered leaves, turning into a pile of ashes. It seems that the Kagaya clan's corpse bone vein is related to Kagaya's shared death gray bones. Hyojin's face was solemn, and his eyes flashed. The shared death gray bones that Kagaya used was a bone blade that came out of her body. In other words, Kagaya was immune to the shared death gray bones. However, Kagaya was the ancestor of chakra, a kekei net, that combined the 7 elements of yin, yang, and 5 elements. She was the first undying expert in the ninja world. Her body was immune to the shared death gray bones, but that didn't mean that her descendants had the same ability. If the corpse bone vein was really a weakened version of the shared death gray bones, then Hyojin couldn't help but sigh at the Kagaya clan's bad luck. Kagaya didn't inherit a lot of powerful abilities, but she inherited the most dangerous ability of Kagaya. Because the bloodline was diluted, the ability was weakened. Although the Uchiha clan couldn't maintain the Manjikyu Sharingan, they would at most lose their sight. But if the Kagaya clan overdeveloped the corpse bone vein and let it get close to the shared death gray bones, they would gradually obtain the property of shared death gray bones. The first to die would naturally be the Kagaya clan, who couldn't bear the property of shared death gray bones. One must know that although the Kagaya clan inherited the sage body of Hamura of Otsutsuki, and their body contains part of the yang attribute chakra, in terms of physique alone, they may be second only to the Senju clan and the Uzumaki clan. However, the property of shared death gray bones is too overbearing. Even a six-path shinobi who has fused the yin release and yang release would find it difficult to be immune to it, not to mention the Kagaya clan who only have the yang release. After speculating this, Hyojin keenly discovered that the blood-changing ritual used by the Kagaya clan to solve the Kekii disease was not a true cure, but a kind of artificial weakening of the corpse bone vein. Through the use of blood-changing and elixir, the shared death gray bones property was removed from the corpse bone vein in order to prolong their life. This is completely incomparable to the Uchiha clan's method of obtaining the eternal pupil power by fusing the Manjikyu Sharingan. The Uchiha clan has really found a way to solve the problem, while the Kagaya clan has only found a way to prolong their existence. Of course, this can't be blamed on the incompetence of the Kagaya clan, because there is only one way to really solve their Kekii disease, and that is to become a Kekii net like Kagaya, which combines the yin-yang 5 elements and the 7 attributes of chakra, making their body strong enough to withstand the shared death gray bones property. But becoming a Kekii net is easier said than done. Not to mention a Kekii net that combines 7 attributes. There are not many people in the shinobi world who can complete the fusion of yin and yang attributes and obtain the power of Gengo. Except for Otsutsuki, the first person to achieve this is Madara Uchiha, who transplanted the Hashirama cells to obtain the Rinnegan. Therefore, it is not easy for the Kagaya clan's ancestors to find a way to change their blood and survive. After a slight sigh of relief, Hyojin secretly thought, "It seems that I can't use the blood-changing ritual. This so-called blood-changing ritual is actually a weakening, not a cure." Chapter 438. No wonder even Orochimaru couldn't save Kimimaro. In the original world, Orochimaru didn't try to save Kimimaro, but even with his medical skills and biotechnology, he couldn't do anything about Kimimaro's blood disease. In fact, this blood disease of the Kagaya clan is a kind of genius disease. The more talented the clansmen are, the earlier they die. For someone as talented as Kimimaro in the original world, he didn't even survive until he got married and had children, leaving behind only 1 or 2 bloodlines before he died. In the next few days, Hyojin received Itachi's combat power enhancement plan through the Ninja Crow, assuming that Amatsukumi's organization is completely destroyed. After crossing out some parts of the plan related to pupillary and taijutsu exercises, Suijin drew a few big circles one after another, circling several places in the plan. These places, without exception, are the settlements of the Uchiha clan during the Warring States period. If these places are connected in a line, one can clearly see the migration route of the Uchiha clan in the past 1,000 years. It seems that Itachi wants to explore these ruins of the Uchiha Warring States period to enhance his understanding of the Sharingan and improve his strength in other aspects. Itachi's choice is understandable. When Uchiha Madara left, he took away too many precious ancient books of the Uchiha clan. If he wants to further understand the Sharingan and the Uchiha clan, he can only explore these ruins of the Uchiha clan during the Warring States period. Itachi in the original world should have done similar things. Could it be that he found the clues of the Tenseigan and Yata no Kagami when he explored these ruins? Itachi died at the age of 21 in the original world, so the trajectory of his life is very simple. He awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan at the age of 11 or 12, exterminated the clan at the age of 13, betrayed the village, and died in a battle with Sasuke at the age of 21. The Tenseigan and Yata no Kagami are most likely Chakra's divine artifacts, and they need a special technique like Susanoo to be used. Therefore, the time when Itachi obtained the Tenseigan and Yata no Kagami was probably the time when he awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan at the age of 11 or 12, and before he died at the age of 21. Rubbing his chin, Kuroda said, Zetsu was watching the battle between Itachi and Sasuke, and when he saw Itachi use the two artifacts, he was obviously surprised, which means that Itachi didn't get the clue of the two artifacts from the Akatsuki. Excluding the possibility of the Sage of Six Paths intervening, the place where Itachi got the clue of the two artifacts is probably one of the many Uchiha ruins. Which one could it be? In the past 1,000 years, the Uchiha clan has migrated many times, and there are more than a dozen ruins in the ruins. If you don't personally go there, just by looking at the names of these ruins, it's impossible to distinguish which ruins may have clues to the divine artifact. After thinking for a long time, Hyojin decided to put this matter aside for now. After all, Jishue's body was still recovering, and she needed Itachi's protection. Itachi couldn't leave at all. Moreover, he also had to pay attention to the cultivation of the wind release clone, so he couldn't get away from it. Moreover, Itachi could find the clues of the divine artifacts in these ruins, but it didn't mean that others could. Therefore, the safest way was to let Itachi go there himself. Therefore, Hyojin decided to wait for Jishue's body to recover before letting Jishue and Itachi go there together to investigate the clues of the Sword of 10 Punches. If the two of them went there together, as long as they didn't bump into Nagato or the Obsidian, they wouldn't be in any danger. For the next month, Hyojin spent his time cultivating the wind release clone and guiding Iaro and Xianglin. Iaro was talented to begin with, and he was very hard-working. When he was serious, he didn't look like a 7-year-old kid at all. Therefore, his improvement was very obvious. Whether it was his physical skills or his sand control, he was like a different person from a month ago. According to Hyojin's estimation, Iaro's physical skills were probably on par with Sasuke's. If he added his sand control ability, he should be able to defeat Sasuke. In comparison, although Xianglin's physical skills had improved, it wasn't as obvious as Iaro's. Xianglin lacked ruthlessness, and her movements were too sloppy during physical skills battles. Iaro couldn't bear to hurt her, so he couldn't correct this bad habit of hers. Fortunately, the high-intensity body technique training stopped her from getting fatter and prevented her from developing horizontally. As for the cultivation of sealing techniques, Hyojin didn't need to worry too much. She could basically learn some basic sealing techniques and Madra techniques as soon as he taught her. If it weren't for the fact that she was still young and that chakra wasn't enough, she could have tried to cast some simple sealing technique. Hyojin was very attentive in guiding these two kids. He basically didn't hold anything back. In addition to training, Hyojin would occasionally care about them. He would bring them to play on the sea or have a picnic on an uninhabited island. These were normal things for ordinary kids, but for Iaro and Xianglin, they were happy experiences that they had never experienced before. Therefore, the two kids trusted and relied on Hyojin more and more. In terms of experiment, under Hyojin's continuous Tenseigan chakra, the two wind release clones in the large nutrition tank had successfully developed after more than a month of cultivation. Looking at the two wind-type clones soaked in the nutrient solution, Suijin couldn't help but feel a sense of surrealism in his heart. Perhaps the difficulty of creating the fire release clones left a deep impression on him, causing him to feel that the cloning of the wind release clones was too smooth. From the beginning to the end, it was completed in less than 2 months. After calming himself down, he observed the two wind release clones. The two wind release clones looked very similar, and he could see his own reflection in their appearance. However, their temperament was colder, and there was a hint of killing intent between their eyebrows. They weren't as gentle as his appearance. In addition, the hair color of the two wind release clones wasn't black like Hyojin's hair, but gray like Kimamaro's hair. His grayish-white hair, coupled with his cold face, gave off a very strange feeling. It was a kind of aggressive, crazy, and somewhat arrogant temperament. After labeling the two wind release clones as Type A and Type B, he carefully compared the difference between the two clones. After comparing the two clones, Hyojin gradually frowned. He noticed that there was an inconspicuous bulge between the eyebrows of the Type A clone. Is this a bump or a tumor? After a pause, Hyojin mumbled, or is it a horn? Chapter 439. Hyojin is sure that at least yesterday, there was no such inconspicuous bulge between the eyebrows of this Type A wind release clone. Under suspicion, he slowly closed his eyes, and then suddenly opened his eyes. His originally white eyes instantly became bright like the stars, and there was a hidden divine light hidden in the Tenseigan. And in the vision of the Tenseigan, the Type A wind release clone's body immediately became visible. It's really a bone, after confirming that the bulge between the eyebrows of the Type A wind release clone is really a small piece of bone under the skin and not some other soft tissue. Hyojin's face became even more doubtful. Horns on the forehead, that is the dominant characteristic of the Otsutsuki clan. As far as Hyojin knows, in addition to the Otsutsuki clan, it seems that only the Golden Horn and the Silver Horn brothers of the Cloud Village have a pair of horns on their head. Yes, it is the overbearing brothers who killed the second-generation Lei Ying and the second-generation Naruto. It is said that the brothers also have the bloodline of the Sage of Six Paths. In the battle with the Nine Tails, they were swallowed by the Nine Tails. As a result, the two of them relied on the flesh and blood of the Nine Tails to make the Nine Tails a berserk beast unable to defeat them. In the end, the two of them had no choice but to spit out the two brothers. And this pair of brothers also swallowed the flesh and blood of the Nine Tails and obtained the chakra of the Nine Tails. This kind of story, even in the myths and legends before the Warring States period, is legendary enough, but it really happened, and it happened a few decades ago. In addition, even the last descendant of the Otsutsuki Himura on the moon, Otsutsuki Samurai, has no horns on his forehead under normal circumstances. Only when he enters the Tenseigan chakra mode will a single horn grow on his forehead. As for Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Obsidian, they all grew horns after becoming Jubi's Jinchuriki, and Hyojin himself, even in the Tenseigan chakra mode, has no horns on his forehead. It seems like the Type A clones underwent a mutation during their development, causing their bodies to show the same atavism as the Gold Horn and Silver Horn brothers. Because whether it is the Hyuga clan or the Kagaya clan, the origin of their bloodline is the ancestor of the Chakra clan, Otsutsuki Kagaya, so the phenomenon of atavism is not a bad thing, but it means that this Type A wind release clone body is likely to have gained additional bloodline power due to the mutation. Soon, Hyojin took out the Type A wind escape clone body from the nutrition tank and placed it on the experiment table. After recording the basic physical data of the Type A wind release clone body, Kuroto didn't hesitate and immediately used the Tenseigan's soul descent technique and put his soul into the Type A wind release clone body. Hua Hyojin, who had changed his body, suddenly sat up on the test bench. This feeling, as he moved his limbs, he felt the flow of chakra in his body. He didn't know why, but this clone body gave him a very strange feeling. It was as if it had been developed before, and there was almost no difficulty in controlling it. It was even smoother than the water release clone and fire release clone that he had been working on for a long time. The compatibility between my spirit body and this clone body is so high? Hyojin was shocked. Such a change was out of his expectation. According to the previous experience of developing the water escape clone and the fire escape clone, it was essential for the spirit body and the clone to get used to each other. Moreover, there was no shortcut. It could only be used over a long period of time and immersed in intense battles. However, this Type A wind release clone body is very different. It seems to be custom-made for Hyojin's spirit body. The control is as smooth as his in release. Could it be because of the mutation? Temporarily suppressing the doubts in his mind, Hyojin started to check every part of the Type A wind release clone body. Byakugan open. With the activation of the Byakugan, Hyojin found that after the Byakugan on the Type A wind release clone body fused with his own spirit body, the Byakugan on the Type A wind release clone body had excellent vision. This is a high-purity Byakugan. Hyojin was not a person without experience, so he quickly identified the Byakugan on the Type A wind release clone body. Once his spirit body fused with the Byakugan, the purity of the Byakugan would instantly surpass the Hyuga clan's Byakugan. At the same time, the moment he activated the Byakugan and mobilized the chakra, he also found that the chakra amount in the Type A wind release clone body was also far beyond his expectations. It was almost close to the level of his in release clone body. The data of this clone body is too exaggerated. Did I pick up a treasure? Or is every wind release clone body this good? Thinking about this, Hyojin's gaze subconsciously shifted to the Type B wind release clone body in the other nutrition tank. Therefore, he took out the Type B wind release clone body from the nutrition tank and used the soul descend technique to send his spirit body into the Type B wind release clone body. After a round of inspection, Hyojin found that the Type B wind release clone body was much more normal. Although the Type B wind release clone body was also good, be it the compatibility with Hyojin's spirit body, the purity of the Byakugan, or the chakra amount in the body, they were far inferior to the Type A wind release clone body. After carefully comparing the data of the two wind release clones, Hyojin mumbled, as expected, it's because of the sudden change after using the soul descend technique to send his spirit body into the Type A wind release clone body. Hyojin casually picked up the secret scroll that recorded the various secret techniques of the Kagaya clan and slowly walked to the training field. After opening the secret scroll, Hyojin began to read it seriously. The Kagaya clan's physical techniques were all ninja techniques that were compatible with the corpse bone bloodline limit. Since the Kagaya clan's main attribute was almost all the wind attribute, the Kagaya clan's members had outstanding speed and explosive power. Even a person with mediocre talent would be able to become a qualified ninja as long as they received proper ninja training. Therefore, almost every member of the Kagaya clan was good at fighting, and the best among them were all battle maniacs. After studying for a long time, Hyojin put the secret scroll aside and pointed at a target far away with his right hand and shouted, "Secret technique, 10-finger piercing bullets." Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. As soon as Hyojin's voice fell, the fingertips of his right hand shot out 5 bone bullets that looked like bullet. Accompanied by a sharp whistling sound, they shot towards the target far away. In an instant, the sturdy target was shot into pieces. Not only that, after the bone bullets shot through the target, they did not lose their momentum and continued to hit the wall behind the target, creating a few holes in the wall that was reinforced by the sealing technique. Looking at the scattered pieces of the target and the holes on the wall, Hyojin was dumbfounded. At first, he just wanted to try and see if he could successfully perform the corpse bone bloodline. He did not expect the result to be like this. Chapter 440. Recalling the smooth release of the bone vein secret jutsu just now, Hyojin's eyes drooped, and he muttered to himself, "Is this what geniuses are like?" The 10-finger piercing bullets just now didn't feel awkward at all, it was like the body's instinct. This made Hyojin, who has ordinary talent and has always needed to practice hard to be proficient in ninjutsu, very uncomfortable. Converging his divergent thoughts, Hyojin slowly walked to the center of the practice field. Kuroto snapped his fingers. Soon, several puppets came out of the storage room. These puppets were obtained by Hyojin through various channels before. Hyojin placed them in the practice field and gave them a certain degree of autonomy through the Tenseigan chakra, letting them serve as training objects. Gurgle gurgle with the shaking of their bodies, sharp blades with cold light popped out of the limbs of these puppets, and immediately, they attacked Hyojin in the field in a variety of strange postures. Not only did Hyojin not activate the Byakugan, but he also closed his eyes and lowered his center of gravity slightly. Feeling the changes in the air around him, and listening to the various sounds from far to near, Hyojin secretly said in his heart, "I feel it." Whoosh! In an instant, when the puppets attacked in front of him, Hyojin's figure turned into an afterimage. This afterimage is like a ghost, wandering among the puppets, avoiding the puppets' attacks again and again, making the scene that should be extremely thrilling inexplicably give people a sense of calmness, as if it was just a game. This is the feeling. In the flashing and moving, Hyojin had a realization in his heart. What he is now using is the secret technique recorded in the Kaguya clan's secret scroll, Dance of the Willow. Dance of the Willow is a relatively high-end secret technique among the many secret techniques of the Kaguya clan. It responds to the enemy's attack by perceiving the surrounding air and judging the sound. It is a high-level ninjutsu that can be performed instinctively even without eyes. Clang clang clang. Suddenly, a series of metal clanging sounds echoed throughout the training field. Hyojin, who was in the middle of the battlefield, stopped moving. The slender bone blades that extended from his palms, elbows, and shoulder blades also slowly retracted back into his body. Just a moment ago, he launched the Dance of the Willow's bone blade attack. In just a few breaths of time, the puppets surrounding him were cut into pieces by the bone blade. Not only the puppet itself, but the metal swords and sabers that the puppet was equipped with were also shattered by the bone blades. Squatting on the ground, Hyojin examined the sword fragments scattered on the ground. He found that the edges of the fragments were very neat, as if they had been cut by a sharper blade. After pondering for a moment, Hyojin shook his right hand, and a bone spear extended from the palm of his right hand. Then he took out a kunai from the ninja bag on his waist. Clang! The bone spear collided with the kunai. Accompanied by a sharp sound, the kunai that was forged from fine steel was instantly cut in half by the bone spear. So sharp? Hyojin didn't rejoice. Instead, a trace of worry appeared in his heart. As one of the candidates for the Wind-type clone, Suijin has high expectations for this clone, and for this reason, he doesn't need the clone to be too strong in the aspect of bone vein, because the stronger the bone vein is, the more severe the Kekii disease will be. What he really needs is the clone's ability to develop the wind release to achieve a balance between the various attributes of the clones. Hoo! After taking a deep breath, Hyojin decided to use the ability of the bone vein less in the future. Then, he started to ponder about the wind attribute Kekii limit. There are many Kekii limit related to the wind attribute in the shinobi world, such as ice release, burning release, dust release, and so on, but there aren't many Kekii limit based on the wind attribute. The magnetic release Kekii limit, which has gradually become the standard for the Kazekage of the Sand Crypsis village, is one of them. The magnetic release Kekii limit mainly has the wind attribute, and the lightning attribute is the secondary attribute. Through the wind attribute chakra, the lightning attribute chakra can be stimulated by the lightning attribute chakra, which is in an extremely active state, to control metals. And according to the chakra attribute of different ninjas, the nature of the magnetic release will also be slightly different. For example, the magnetic release of the 3 generations of Kazekage can control ordinary iron sand, while the magnetic release of the 4 generations of Kazekage can control the very rare gold sand. Hyojin has already checked the chakra attribute of this type A wind clone. It is mainly of the wind attribute, but it also has the yin attribute, yang attribute, lightning attribute, earth attribute, and water attribute. The only thing it lacks is the fire attribute. Therefore, this type A wind escape clone could try to cultivate the magnetic escape. And because he has owned the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets for a long time, Hyojin's understanding of the magnetic release is probably second only to the current 4 generations of Kazekage. Because when he first mastered the soul descent technique, he has possessed the bodies of the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets many times and personally experienced the feeling of using the magnetic release. He is very clear about the principle of how to use the wind attribute chakra to stimulate the lightning attribute chakra, and how to keep the lightning attribute chakra in a high-frequency vibration state to generate the magnetic force. Not long after, Hyojin summoned the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets to the practice field. After borrowing some iron sand from the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets, he began to try to practice the magnetic release. For someone who has practiced ice release and fire release, the fusion of 2 different chakra attributes is not too difficult, but magnetic release is different from ice release and fire release, so it is not too difficult for him to fuse 2 different chakra attributes together. It is just that magnetic release is different from ice and fire release. The ice release and the flame release are about fusing different attributes of chakra together to produce a change in nature, so the key to them is fusion. The magnetic release is different. Simply fusing the wind attribute chakra and the lightning attribute chakra will not be able to practice the magnetic release. The key to the magnetic release is not fusion, but stimulation. If you don't know this trick, no matter how high your talent is, no matter how much chakra you have, you still won't be able to practice the magnetic release. However, this trick may be a big secret for others, but for Hyojin, who has simultaneously possessed the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets and the soul descent technique, it is knowledge that he has already mastered long ago. Recalling the feeling of using the magnetic release when he possessed the bodies of the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets, Hyojin closed his eyes and concentrated on controlling the wind attribute chakra in his body, letting the wind attribute chakra tease the lightning attribute chakra little by little, making the lightning attribute chakra more and more active. Chapter 441. As Hyojin became more and more focused on controlling the wind attribute chakra to provoke the thunder attribute chakra, he soon immersed himself in this kind of single-minded practice, leaving everything around him behind. There was no doubt that the nature fusion of the magnetic release was a great test of the ninja's control over the chakra. This was because to maintain the effect of the magnetic release, one must constantly control the wind attribute chakra to stimulate the thunder attribute chakra, turning the control of the wind attribute chakra into an instinct of the body. This was different from the ninjutsu that needed to be performed by hand seals. The hand seal ninjutsu often only needed the ninja to control the chakra to complete the hand seals in a short period of time, and then it could be performed smoothly. Therefore, many people could do it. However, to perform the magnetic release, the ninja needed to maintain the state of performing the technique and continuously control the chakra, which was equivalent to a ninja constantly making hand seals. Therefore, maintaining the magnetic release was both a kind of training and a burden for the ninja. This was also why the Sand Crypsis village had explored the method of practicing the magnetic release, but only the 3 generations of Kazekage and the 4 generations of Kazekage had truly mastered the magnetic release. In the practice field, as Hyojin gradually immersed himself in it, the lump of iron sand in front of him was gradually affected. More and more black iron sand particles were attracted by the magnetic force and floated in the air. It was not until a strong sense of hunger came from his stomach that Hyojin slowly came to his senses and withdrew from this state of immersion. Clatter, as soon as Hyojin withdrew from the state of cultivation, the iron sand floating in front of him fell to the ground. Hearing the sound of iron sand falling to the ground, Hyojin immediately woke up with a start. He suddenly opened his eyes and muttered, "It can't be, it only took one try and he succeeded?" Recollecting his thoughts, Hyojin asked the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets standing on the side. Only then did he know that a full 5 hours had passed since he began to try to practice the magnetic release. So much time has passed without me noticing. No wonder I'm so hungry. Hyojin immediately got up and looked for some food to fill his stomach as he pondered. With just one attempt, he had produced a slight magnetic force and affected the iron sand, causing the iron sand to float. Such a remarkable cultivation effect made him extremely happy. He felt that the reason why it was so effective was closely related to this clone. It seems like this clone has a high affinity with chakra. Apart from having a low affinity with fire chakra, Clone A has a very high affinity with other chakra attributes, especially the wind chakra, which is the main chakra attribute. Clone A has a very high affinity with all other chakra attributes, especially the wind chakra. Moreover, Hyojin himself was very clear about the principle of the magnetic release. Moreover, he had personally experienced using the magnetic release on the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets many times. That was why the effect of his cultivation was so remarkable. In addition, these iron sand borrowed from the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets had been affected by the magnetic release chakra for many years. Therefore, they were very sensitive to the magnetic release. Even if there was only a slight magnetic force, they would still respond. With all these factors combined, Hyojin was able to achieve such an excellent result when he used the Clone A to practice the magnetic release for the first time. 3 days later, Hyojin, who was controlling the Clone A of wind release, stood calmly in the middle of the practice field. Opposite him were the 3 generations of Kazekage puppet. The 2 of them were quietly facing each other in the practice field. Both of them were wrapped in iron sand balls made of black iron sand. These iron sand balls were like a flowing shield, flying and dancing on their bodies. In the air around them there were also many fine iron sand particles. These fine iron sand floating in the air were sandwiched between 2 powerful magnetic fields. Sometimes they were pulled in the direction of Hyojin, and sometimes they were pulled in the direction of the 3 generations of Kazekage puppet. It could be seen that although the 2 sides were quietly confronting each other, the battle on the magnetic field had already been going on for a long time. After a while, the corner of Hyojin's mouth rose. "Let's play something new." After saying that, he raised his hands slightly, and the iron sand ball wrapped around his body split into 2, instantly turning into 2 sharp iron thorns that glowed with a cold light. Then, he clenched his right hand into a fist. As he urged the magnetic release chakra in his body, the 2 iron thorns rotated parallel to each other and flew up, and the speed was getting faster and faster. Electric currents visible to the naked eye were gradually generated between each other, pulling each other. At this time, Hyojin's right hand that was clenched into a fist suddenly swung forward, and he shouted, "Magnetic release, magnetic impact." Shio, in an instant, the 2 iron thorns flying parallel to each other, accompanied by a sharp whistle, attacked the opponent's 3 generations of Kazekage puppets. Seeing this, the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets quickly urged their iron sand balls to turn into a huge iron shield, firmly protecting his front. However, when the 2 spinning iron thorns hit the iron shield, there was no sound of metal impact. Sandaime Kazekage's puppet used its own magnet release to shape the giant iron shield. At the moment when it was hit by Kuroto's 2 iron thorns, an electric arc swam on it, and then the original solid surface of the iron shield disintegrated instantly like fine quicksand. Walala, in the sound of iron sand falling to the ground, in just a moment, the huge iron shield of the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets became scattered iron sand on the ground. Hyojin smiled and immediately stopped the 2 iron thorns that attacked the 3 generations of Kazekage puppet. The contest between magnetic release Kekii limit is different from other Kekii limit. In the contest between magnetic release and magnetic release, if the strength of one side's chakra is better than the other, then the weaker side has almost no ability to resist. Because magnetic force is very easy to be affected, in the face of a stronger magnetic force, the weaker side will collapse in an instant. This is also the reason why the high-intensity thunder release can restrain the magnetic release ninjutsu. It does not mean that the chakra nature of the thunder release is stronger than the magnetic release, but the high-intensity thunder release can affect the stimulation of the wind attribute chakra on the thunder attribute chakra, fundamentally disintegrating the environment that produces the magnetic release, thus causing the magnetic release ninjutsu to collapse due to the disorder of its own magnetic force. If the enemy on the opposite side is the 3 generations of Kazekage, it will not be so easy for Hyojin to win, but the opponent is just a puppet made from the corpses of the 3 generations of Kazekage by Sasori. Although it can also use magnetic release, the puppet that has lost the spirit of the 3 generations of Kazekage, in terms of the strength of chakra, there is a big gap between the strength of the real 3 generations of Kazekage. This difference in the strength of chakra may not be obvious in the contest with other ninjutsu, but when compared with the same magnetic release, it is immediately exposed. Chapter 442. After 2 months, Hyojin finally returned to the village. After retrieving the shadow doppelganger that has been replacing him to carry out the task of Umbu Team 7, a large amount of chaotic memories poured into Kuroto's mind. It took him a while to sort out what the shadow clone had experienced in the past 2 months. In the past 2 months, everything in Konoha was calm on the surface, but the vigilance in the dark was gradually escalating, especially for the Umbu. The task was getting heavier and heavier day by day. Suejin's shadow clone was also on duty for 7 consecutive days, sweeping more than a dozen suspicious areas around Konoha before he was given a day off and was able to return home to rest. Rubbing his chin while sitting cross-legged on the bed, Hyojin secretly thought to himself, could it be that the 3 generations have some other information channels? All the signs indicate that the 3 generations are planning something. It stands to reason that the Akatsuki organization hasn't made any movements for a long time, so the village's security should have gradually relaxed, but the 3 generations have secretly increased their security. This behavior is against common sense, which undoubtedly shows that the 3 generations are certain that the Akatsuki organization will launch a retaliatory attack on the village, and the attack should be getting closer and closer. But why are the 3 generations so certain? Hyojin frowned and fell into deep thought. Since the last joint raid, Hyojin has lost contact with Shinichi, who was lurking in the Akatsuki organization, and as time passes, Hyojin has become more and more worried about Shinichi's safety. There are only 2 possibilities for this situation: either Shinichi's identity was exposed and he was eliminated by the Akatsuki organization, or Shinichi is under 24-hour surveillance and can't send any messages. Of course, Hyojin hopes that it's the latter, but if it's the latter, it means that the Akatsuki organization has changed its loose management and began to strictly monitor all of its members. At the same time, it also means that the members of the Akatsuki organization don't work in groups of 2 like before, but all of them are gathered together. Why do they always gather together? This question made Hyojin speculate that the Akatsuki organization must be doing something big recently. After all, the members of the Akatsuki organization are rebellious people, and if there is no reason for them to stay together, they won't obediently stay together. Leaving home, on the way to the Uchiha clan, Hyojin secretly thought, the 3 generations must know something. After the failure of the joint raid, the 3 generations have become more and more secretive. Even the well-informed Umbu can't find any information about the 3 generations. If it wasn't for the fact that Hyojin was a former member of the Umbu Team 11 and had a close relationship with Kakashi, he knew about the attack on Kakashi. At the same time, because he secretly controlled the mist, he knew that the 3 generations secretly held the 5 Kage assembly. he might not be able to find any clues. The 3 generations suppressed the attack on Kakashi and the patrol team. They didn't make it public. It's obvious that they want to cover up the peace and confuse the other 4 villages, making them think that Mai is safe. The 3 generations secretly contacted the other 4 villages to hold the 5 Kage assembly, and the location of the assembly is in the village. Obviously, they want to summon the 4 Kage to the village, while covering up the traces of the Akatsuki organization's activities in the village. They also want to summon the other 4 Kage to the village. Hiss, why do I feel like the 3 generations know what is going to happen in the village, so they deliberately summoned the 4 Kage to help Mai? Hyojin was also shocked by his own guess. If Kuroto's guess is correct, then Hokage-sama is not only plotting against the Akatsuki organization, but also the other 4 shinobi villages. These 2 months were enough for the other 4 Kage to consider whether or not to participate in the 5 Kage assembly and secretly plan their route to Mai. So, whether Hyojin's guess was correct or not, he believed that it would not be long before he knew the answer. Hyojin chuckled and said, "This old man is very evil." Not long after, Hyojin arrived at the Uchiha clan's land and met Jishuei and Itachi in a training field. After greeting them, Hyojin asked, "How's your body recovering?" Jishuei smiled and said, "My body has completely adapted to it." After a full 2 months of recovery, Jishuei's body has completely adapted to the Hashirama cells. At this time, not only has his pupil power increased, but his physical strength and chakras amount have also improved to varying degrees. Hyojin said, "Very good, then let's start the eye transplant surgery." Jishuei nodded quickly. In order to suppress the Hashirama cells in his body, during this period of time, Jishuei has been using the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye socket. Now that his body has adapted to the Hashirama cells, it's time to change back to his own Manjikyu Sharingan. The operation site is still located in the Death Forest. Because it is a simple eye transplant surgery, it only took a moment for Hyojin to skillfully remove the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in Jishuei's eye socket and transplant the Manjikyu Sharingan that has been soaked in nutrient solution back into his eye socket. After completing the eye transplant surgery, Hyojin looked at the instruments around the operating table and asked Jishuei, "How do you feel?" Jishuei, who was covering his eyes, shook his head, and after a while, he said in surprise, "Senpai, my Manjikyu Sharingan's vision seems to have recovered a lot." Hyojin said, "After the transplantation of the Hashirama cells, your pupil power has been enhanced, and the pupil power that was previously consumed in your Manjikyu Sharingan will naturally recover slowly." After getting off the operating table, Jishuei bowed deeply to Hyojin and said, "Senpai, it's all thanks to your help that I can recover my eyesight." Hyojin waved his hand and said, "We don't need to be too polite between us. By the way, I guess it will take 2 or 3 days for your eyesight to fully recover, so during this period, you'd better not use your pupil power, lest it affects the recovery of your Manjikyu Sharingan." Jishuei replied, "I understand." At this time, Hyojin put the pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan that was removed from Jishuei's eye sockets and put it into a small nutrition tank. This time, when he helped Jishuei transplant the Hashirama cells, Hyojin did not gain nothing. In addition to the harvest of surgical experience, his biggest gain was that after the yang release chakra contained in the Hashirama cells, the pupil power of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan was significantly enhanced. Looking at the pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan that was put into a small nutrition tank by Hyojin, Jishuei immediately said, "Because of me, Yanin lost her eyes for so long, I'm afraid that this period of time has caused great inconvenience to her." Hyojin smiled and said in his heart, "It's okay, she has been soaking in the tank." You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.